CNN, ESPN, ABC, BCBPNT, but mostly BS.
This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the new time for Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Hopefully we can be your alternative to the Sunday morning corporate news.
Anything is better than that.
Yes.
I'm serious. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Why we're here on Sunday mornings.
Exactly.
And it's going to be hilarious, though. Good morning, everyone.
Good
Happy
morning.
Sunday.
Talking Left now with 100% more caffeine.
Oh, come on. We had plenty of caffeine at 7 in the evening, too.
Yes, this is true.
Because we were up till 3 in the morning with the shakes.
This is true. But we did find a few news stories we thought were very important and not getting enough coverage this week. So,
and you will not hear them on the other. Well, you may. Maybe on.
You may, but
Up with Chris and things
they should definitely be getting more coverage. Starting with the case of Maria Calderon, or Calderon, perhaps, who is a domestic violence victim in Arizona. When she tried to report the fact that her husband was beating her, she was immediately detained by ICE officials.
Now, I thought there was a law against this.
There used to be.
Oh, that's right. The Violence Against Women. Oh, yes.
The Violence Against Women Act used to prevent immigrants like this getting arrested when they were a victim of a crime. Number one, the Violence Against Women Act has not been reauthorized, so Maria Calderon and those like her are no longer protected by that law. In addition, Arizona's SB 1070 basically says that arresting officers no longer have the option of choosing to not call immigration officials, that they could be victims of a lawsuit should they not prosecute Maria for her immigration status.
Oh, that's right. There's that little known part of SB 10
right,
where it gives a cause of action to a private citizen against the police officers for failing to enforce that law.
Exactly.
Which is incredible.
So Maria, who, by the way, is married to a United States citizen, so I don't understand how she is not eligible for a visa. But that's beyond the point. Yeah. Basically, she called officers to complain that her husband was beating her, and within 10 minutes, ICE officials were there, arrested her for being in the United States illegally, and she now sits in a detention center waiting to be deported.
And not only is it a tragedy for her specifically, but what message does this send?
Right. Now, it tells
to other spouses who are being abused,
not to report it.
Don't you dare report it. And even worse, if you happen to be in a relationship with someone who is undocumented, have at it.
Yep.
If that's if you're that sick and you are into that, I mean, it's a terrible precedent.
So not only do we not hear this in the media, but I highly doubt we're going to hear anything about this in any of the debates. So it's something we thought we should cover here.
That is one we should start marking down a list. I mean, we've gone over this just before the presidential debate, things we wanted to hear and we knew wouldn't be there. But certainly, reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act
would be a top priority.
Right.
And without carving out exceptions for illegal immigrants, LGBT women, and I forget what the other exception was that the violence. Oh, Native American women. So without carving out those exceptions, perhaps they can reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act and protect women like Maria from not only being a victim, but being a victim that is trapped and has no way of reporting it. So lovely. Great job, Arizona. In a new study by the Pesticide Action Network of North America, there's been a definitive link between pesticides used in our food products and the developmental disorders found in children. I think this is really important, and it's something that has virtually no chance of being covered in the debate. 400,000 to 600,000 kids are born every day with developmental disorders. They estimate that at least 10,000 of them are diagnosed with cancer and another 7 million kids have been diagnosed with asthma. This study now shows that pesticides, along with other factors as well, basically affect the genetic makeup of these children and create developmental disorders. It's pretty scary stuff.
And we're shocked by this. How, putting strange chemicals in people's bodies,
exactly.
There would be a negative, repercussions of this?
Well, and the study's leader, Kristen Schaefer, quotes saying, lots of other factors can, genetic factors, environmental factors also play a role. But here they find a definitive link about these pesticides, and very few school systems, very few neighborhoods, very few produce retailers are doing anything about it. I mean, this is our whole future generation. These are the people who are going to lead our country, who are going to, hopefully solve the world's problems, and we aren't really giving them a very good start.
And on top of it, what you point to right there is that when you get, unfortunately, in order to make these types of changes, you need to go through the court system. And you're going to have a bunch of defense attorneys who say, well, it could be this or it could be that. It could be this, because causation is the most difficult thing to prove. It's great that they're doing these studies because that makes it easier. It's not just to get the information out, but it's also to say, hey, knock it off. Well,
and when you have the case of Prop 37 going on in California where, residents are trying to simply ask that GMOs be labeled in their foods, cases like this are very important to factor in, that it's not just the GMOs. It's not just processed foods. It's the actual pesticides being used on the crops that are having dramatic impacts in these children's lives. And I think it's very important for us to pay attention to a story like that, especially as we know corporate media sure isn't going to cover it, and I highly doubt it's going to be a debate question. Right on that same topic, apparently, don't know how many people have heard this, a new meningitis outbreak thought to be responsible or thought to be caused by a steroid injection given to pain patients has now generated 169 cases as of Tuesday, including 14 deaths in 11 different states. Very interesting how we don't hear anything about this in the corporate news.
And now, this is something that usually is overseen by certain agencies within our government.
Right.
Correct. Have there been cuts to that specific agency? Because this is a lot of what the so-called big government that Republicans rail against want to get rid of.
Well, here's
these
the
types
thing.
of protections that stop things like this.
This would normally be covered by, the agencies that monitor pharmaceutical companies. However, the problem wasn't created at the original pharmaceutical company. This was created by what's called a compounding center, essentially companies that mix together a bunch of drugs specific to a certain patient, and they create one compound drug, in this case, the compound pain management given as an epidural. But 1,400 patients were potentially given this tainted pain medicine. So far, as I said, 169 cases, and that was just as of Tuesday. So with 32 cases that came forward on Tuesday itself, that day itself, how many have we possibly seen since then? The medication had been shipped out to 23 different states, and as I said, 14 people have died from this. The only reason we're even hearing about this case is because one woman who has yet to be completely diagnosed with meningitis but is suffering from all of the symptoms is filing a lawsuit. So, interestingly enough, once there's money involved, somebody feels the need to report it.
Well, that's one of the purposes of lawsuits, to get information out there. I would be interested to see if there's been any, what would it be, the CDC, any alerts and things like that. Do we know?
They are recalling.
Right.
The CDC basically is just saying that they're trying to control the meningitis outbreak. They're still at the process of trying to figure out where this vaccine has been shipped, etc. Just to answer a question, to break our news for a moment and answer a question in the chat room. We are not on We Act Radio this morning.
We will be starting.
We will be starting soon.
We just have to get a delivery system.
Yes, this is our dress rehearsal, and we appreciate everybody tuning in for it.
There.
Yes. So, no need to be concerned that there's no sound on We Act. That'll be where
there's no sound whatsoever?
No.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Surprised our phones aren't going off.
Yeah. Okay. Another one, and this is one that really, another news story, and it's very interrelated here, that really, really frustrates me that I keep hearing. I'm trying to think of how to say that without a curse word. Is Mitt Romney, of course, our candidate for president, Republican candidate for president, has now doubled down on his statement that people who don't have health insurance can seek treatment in the ER, in the emergency room. His specific statement, to quote him, he told the Columbus Dispatch, which I assume is a newspaper, that, quote, "We don't have a setting across this country where if you don't have insurance, we just say to you, tough luck, you're going to die when you have a heart attack." He has offered more hints to what he would change in Obamacare, but hasn't given specifics. And he goes on to further state, no, you go to the hospital, you get treated, you get care, and it's paid for either by charity, the government, or by the hospital. We don't have people becoming ill who die in their apartment because they don't have insurance. First and foremost, yes, we do. Basically 45,000 people a year. 45,000 people die because they do not have insurance coverage. That is essentially one every 12 minutes. That's just because they don't have insurance coverage. Secondly,
because there's a difference between treating an emergency and treating a disease.
Exactly. And secondly, the law that Romney is referencing here, he's saying we have a law that requires emergency rooms to care for people. No, we do not. We have a law that requires emergency rooms to stabilize people. It's called
Street.
Exactly. It's called EMTALA. It stands for Emergency Medical Treatment Act of Labor Act. It was put into place because these same emergency rooms that, he's directing people to did turn sick people away, did turn women in labor away because they didn't have insurance and would try and send them to a public hospital. Hence, many women and their babies died in transport trying to reach a more affordable option. That's why we even had to have a law in place. Secondly, that law only says the hospital has to stabilize somebody. Ask them if they are a cancer patient, if they're a mother with a sick child, if they're an elderly person suffering from severe arthritis. Ask any of those people if they can get quote-unquote care in the emergency room. Obviously, Mitt Romney doesn't understand the difference. And last but not least, I have to love Republicans. Shane, don't you?
They are great fodder.
Rick Perry.
Oh, Governor Goodhair.
Yes. Just wants to soothe his base, calm his people, as he lets them know, don't worry, Republicans, Mitt's justice will still kill Roe v. Wade.
Is he playing with Mitt Romney's hair?
Perhaps. Twiddling it a little bit.
Yeah.
We did see this covered in the vice presidential debate, and we will get into it a little bit later. But we couldn't miss the opportunity to read Rick Perry's quote. By the way, Rick Perry does not believe that Medicare and Social Security are constitutional. Just a little caveat there. But he says he's confident that Mitt Romney will appoint constitutionalists to the Supreme Court. His exact quote is, "I think the Supreme Court is where that issue, meaning Roe v. Wade, will be decided from the standpoint of how America's growing. We'll have a Supreme Court decision, and that's where the focus will be." He's said he's very clearly, him referring to Romney, going to put people who are constitutionalists in the Supreme Court. So this coming from a man who doesn't believe that Social Security and Medicare are constitutional, let alone a woman's right to choose. After this statement and Chris Christie saying how great Romney was going to do in the debate, granted, that worked out well for him, but setting the bar very high, you have to wonder if these guys don't like Romney very much. And on to the fun stuff. We'll get to the debate in just a little while. But why are we here? This new time, bright and early, where there's not enough coffee in existence.
Danielle, I have to tell you, when we came up with this idea for doing 9 to noon, because it fits into some certain radio schedules,
yes,
and all that. And at first, I'll tell you, first of all, 7 years ago, I'd have said, go to hell. Yeah. No way. But and that's not because I don't like getting up in the morning. I love getting up in the morning. I talk even faster in the morning.
Yeah, you hear that? You hear what I have to deal with before my coffee is kicked in?
So, but 7 years ago, I would have said, to hell with that. I need to see Russert. Tim Russert, 9 a.m.
Right.
Now, everyone knows, and tragically, Tim passed away years ago.
Right.
But it isn't just that he's passed away. It's that type of journalism on Sunday morning is gone. It has been gone. If you go to Crooks and Liars on any Sunday, and they are great at documenting this, the absolute devolvement of journalism on Sunday mornings. Now, up with Chris Hayes, Melissa.
Yeah, great stuff.
Those shows have taken up the torch proudly, and they are being DVR'd at this moment. And you also see that at Crooks and Liars. They do give them absolute credit for great commentary programming reporting over there. But the main networks, are awful. And we will, from time to time, pop in. I've got the shows up here on the monitor, and I tell you, at any given moment, we can pop in, and we can hear David Gregory say something just dumb as bleep.
Right. Because that's what we all need first thing in the morning.
Well, but I think it's important. Well, it used to be, and this is the thing. Years ago, and back in my day, it wasn't that long ago, that news was actually made on the Sunday morning shows.
Right.
That guests came in.
It wasn't just an echo chamber.
But they came in, and they were there to make news. They were there, not the moderators. They didn't make the news, but they questioned well enough. They were interested enough, well-researched enough, bipartisan enough to really interrogate, almost depose, and there was news that was obtained, something that we didn't know before that was important to what's going on in the country politically, socially, when it comes to wars and things like that. But now all they do is they go in there. It's essentially a megaphone for whatever claptrap,
whatever talking points.
And they're not challenged. If they are challenged in any significant way, they just won't come back.
Right. No, I mean, we see this in every...
You can't just blame the moderators. The politicians have gotten really good at manipulating these moderators. But at some point, the moderators, I believe, should stand up and say, fine, you don't want to come on? We'll talk to somebody else who does.
Right. But there's a lack of substance, for the most part, on Sunday morning. There's a lack of people actually hearing legitimate news. And granted, we will not pretend that this show doesn't have a progressive bias. But we're not going to sit there and say that we're your one and only source for news.
Right. And by the way, we'll never have John McCain here. We swear. Because he's ubiquitous.
Right.
On the Sunday morning shows.
But hopefully... I wasn't
president, so I'll be on Sunday every day.
Hopefully we can provide an alternative.
He just sits in front of a satellite feed,
yes,
I swear,
exactly.
waiting for Sunday.
Exactly. They just, give him some coffee right there Sunday morning. You're ready to go, John. But hopefully
I'm still mad. I don't know why, but I'm mad.
Hopefully we can be your alternative to Sunday morning talk shows.
Palin again, damn it.
And you can listen in your jammies.
She was a fine choice.
Settle
I'm
down,
proud of
John.
what we did.
Settle down, John. And we've got 3 great guests, possibly 4 if somebody shows up. But I think they're still sleeping.
They may be ducking us.
Yes, and we'll leave it at that. But we do have 3 great guests coming up today. Cliff Schecter, of course, everybody knows Cliff Schecter of Al Jazeera English, of We Act Radio, of Libertas. He's everywhere. Lizz Winstead, actress, comedian,
really?
Author.
Kick ass.
Yeah. About her awesome new project, A is For. And, of course, her great book that I put out of arm's length, Liz Free or Die. And another author, perhaps who needs a bigger introduction because we all have to check out this book, K.C. Boyd, author of A Being Christian, a novel, which basically gets into how the religious right took over Christianity. So should be a great show. Of course, it's Sunday, and we'll be covering the debates just like every other Sunday talk show, but we'll have a little more fun doing it. So we appreciate everybody listening in at this early hour. We're going to run to a break. Go get your coffee, throw your slippers on, and we'll be right back here on Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shayna.
Whoa! Awesome! Totally awesome! All right!
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shayna.
Okay, astronaut, you're up. You'll be meeting with Wish Kid Brandon.
Roger, Brandon.
His wish is to see a space shuttle launch.
All systems are go. We are clear for liftoff.
This year, more than 27,000 children will be diagnosed with a life-threatening medical condition.
And, Cowboy,
Yes, ma'am.
you'll be meeting with Shayla at a dude ranch in San Antonio.
Let's saddle up.
Some will miss school, some will miss time with their family and friends.
Princess, are you here?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for rescuing me from that evil witch.
Juliana wishes for a princess-themed room makeover.
That sounds magical.
But with your help, the Make-A-Wish Foundation can lift their spirits and give them a special kind of hope.
Pirate,
Yar!
you're up for Isaac's wish.
Aye, aye, Captain.
The wishes of thousands of children are waiting to come true.
You can help make my wish happen. Visit wish.org today.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm 29 years old and have a career that I love as a systems analyst. Career. It still sounds cool to say that word. I never could have gotten on this path without a college degree. And if the college me were here, he'd tell you.
I never would have gotten to college without Big Brothers Big Sisters. I could have ended up anywhere, on the streets even. But college? Joe Thompson? Not likely. My big brother helped me out. He taught me I could do anything, at a time when a lot of people were saying just the opposite.
And to a 7-year-old, that means a lot. My big brother's name is Phil. And Phil is the reason that this 7-year-old grows up to be a systems analyst.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child. And that can last a lifetime. Start something today at bigbrothersbigsisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
Hello, my name is Antonio Ford from A Plus Fitness. I've been studying foods, nutrition, and the anatomy of the body for well over 23 years. One thing about an animal-based diet is it kills people in every bite. It kills you by restricting blood and oxygen from flowing freely throughout your arteries, thus causing all kinds of life-threatening health problems and issues. If you want the blueprint for healthy eating, stay tuned to We Act Radio for more information, or contact us at aplus.fitness@yahoo.com. Again, that's aplus.fitness@yahoo.com, or give us a call at area code 202-903-6323. Remember, it's one bite at a time.
Hank Action News is proud to be sponsored by Healthcare for America Now. HCAN is a national coalition of more than 1,000 groups in 50 states, representing 30 million people. HCAN works to promote, defend, implement, and improve the Affordable Care Act at both the state and federal levels. They also try to protect Medicare and Medicaid, increase corporate accountability, and confront forces that seek to take away critical services. HCAN believes in creating jobs, not cutting programs people depend on. HCAN runs comprehensive issue campaigns that mobilize people at the grassroots and define the public debate. HCAN is fighting to protect, implement, and improve the new health care law through national and state-based legislative and regulatory campaigns built on grassroots action, public education, communications, policy analysis, and groundbreaking research. HCAN has become a respected voice and national leader on health care while continuing to focus on aggressive field activity. Support HCAN, Healthcare for America Now.
From the East Coast to the West Coast, down the Dixie Highway, back home. This is our country.
Good morning again. Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shano. The new morning time edition. Hope everybody brought some coffee. So, of course, the big news this week was the vice presidential debate, in which Joe Biden was awesome. And we've heard everybody going back and forth, at least on the right, about whether or not he was rude. And we'll get into that later. Was his laughing appropriate, and how they're handling it? You know, their statements. Was that appropriate? But in this short few minutes we have before our next break, I thought it would be fun, Shane, to figure out what our favorite clips were. Did you have a favorite moment in the vice presidential debate?
I think probably when he kind of went on that long. Well, no, actually, I'm going to change my mind. It was the long one. The first time he actually hit him, figuratively.
Yes, of course.
Where I have to say, for the first few minutes, I was watching and saying, "Come on, you're kind of smiling here, and obviously you want to call BS. Say something." And when he did, it was like, wow, out of nowhere. And that first minute and a half thing where he just kind of ratcheted through it was great. But what I really liked the most is kind of where he in real time was correcting Ryan while he's trying to give his answer on entitlement reform.
Right.
I don't know if we have that clip actually amongst the huge ones. So he says it was bipartisan. There's a senator from blah, blah, blah. Well, he disagrees with that now. And then, and he went through all these things, and he kept saying, well, that's not true. Yes,
yeah.
It is. No, it isn't. Yes, it is. No, it isn't.
I think that's actually clip 2, if you have that, because that was also one of my favorite moments. I'm not sure if it was the favorite, but definitely
I
up
just like
there.
the fact that he was fact-checking in real time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's clip 2.
And the thing is, Ryan gets so upset about it. Well, you know what? You guys do this. What has been, someone's pointed out, the Gish Gallop.
Right.
If you just run through like 12 lies in a row and you only get to 10 of them, so 2 of them still stand. So he just figures, I'm just going to go back and forth on this. I hope this is it.
I think
Is
he
wrong about that? He is wrong about that. You can cut tax rates by 20% and still preserve these important preferences for middle-class taxpayers.
Not mathematically possible.
It is mathematically possible. It's been done before. It's precisely what we're proposing.
It has never been done before.
It's been done a couple of times, actually.
It has never been
Jack
done
Kennedy
before.
lowered tax rates, increased growth. Ronald Reagan.
Now you're Jack Kennedy.
Ronald Reagan.
I love the nervous laughter there at the end. I didn't know Paul Ryan
He
could
thought he was going to whip
sound
out
like
a Lloyd Benson on his ass.
Yeah, Paul Ryan could sound like Beavis and Butthead. But I loved it. I know that people on the right are losing their mind over the fact that Paul Ryan couldn't stand up to the fact that his lies were being challenged. And, I understand they think Joe Biden was rude or dismissive, but what can you do when you're faced with somebody who simply lies over and over and over again?
Here's a question. Is laughing ruder than flat out lying straight to the American people?
I don't think so.
Nor do I.
I think, in fact, it's heroic to stand up for the American people and challenge the lies. Let them know this is the option that you have here. Somebody who is lying straight to your face repeatedly, or somebody who, hey, we can have complaints with. We can say we want them to do better, but at least they're not lying straight to the American people. I'm not sure if that was my favorite moment, but it was definitely up there. But I do know, Shane, specifically what my least favorite moment was.
What was that?
That was when Martha Raddatz asked the question on Social Security. It's clip 14A.
Let's talk about Medicare and entitlements. Both Medicare and Social Security are going broke and taking a larger share of the budget in the process. Will benefits for Americans under these programs have to change for the programs to survive, Mr. Ryan?
Absolutely. Medicare and Social Security are going bankrupt. These are indisputable facts.
Indisputable facts. I love when a liar uses a term like indisputable facts, because the fact is they're not going bankrupt. The problem I had with Martha Raddatz's question, number one, is the assumption that the programs are going bankrupt. Number two, the assumption that the only way to fix that is on the benefit side, as opposed to the revenue side. That her specific question is, do benefits have to change to fix it?
Well, I think that's a reasonable question. If it's the first question is going to be posed to Ryan, the premise of the question, yes, I dispute. And by the way, there's not a company in this entire United States you can assume is going to be solvent in 25 years.
Exactly.
That's too hard to predict out.
Exactly.
Now, you can't anticipate that your costs will go up over that 25-year period, but you can't also assume that your revenues are going to stay flat.
Right. But it assumes that there's no other option except for these programs to go go bankrupt, and that the only corrective action we can take is to adjust benefits.
But the question was
so
to
many
Paul Ryan.
more.
The question was to Paul Ryan. I think the question was kind of aimed as you want to cut it, don't you? Because that's
Fair
not
enough.
a popular position to take.
Fair enough. I guess I didn't think about that.
I think if the question was first going to be to Joe Biden, she would premise it by that and say, how in the world are you going to come up with the revenue without cutting benefits? I don't believe that, but I do have a problem with the premise of it being obvious he's going broke.
Absolutely. Well,
our first disagreement on Sunday morning.
Well,
I'm
I
gonna
think
get smacked by noon.
Yes, exactly. You're lucky you're far away and I can't throw stuff at you, especially because there's a lot of expensive stuff that I could break in between me and you. All right. Well, we're going to get into.
We'll be broadcasting via a tape recorder.
We're going to get into more of the debate in the next segment here, and hopefully get to our great guests soon. But don't go anywhere. It's morning. Go get a coffee refill. We'll be right back here on Talking Left with me,
early.
Danielle, and Shano.
A beautiful place full of wonderful things just waiting to be experienced.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
My job as a free-range commentator and political yakety-yacker requires very little heavy lifting. But as a Texan, I do have the occasional burden of having to explain Rick Perry's periodic eruptions of volcanic inanity. Or is it insanity? Perry, the now famous Governor Oops, went off again in a recent conference call to promote a right-wing politico-religio electioneering stunt dubbed 40 Days to Save America. The 40 days terminate on November 6th, Election Day, and the whole silly thing is nothing but a come-to-the-GOP Jesus altar call, orchestrated by the partisan pulpit pounder Rick Scarborough. Of course, it's a call to save America from Barack Obama. Los Dos Ricks were trying to gin up turnout among evangelicals who are less than enthused by a Republican nominee who's a multimillionaire Mormon from the Cayman Islands, so Perry laid it on thick. He declared that America is in the midst of spiritual warfare, forced upon purist Christians by Obama's, quote, effort to remove any trace of religion from American life. Really, Rick? When did he say that? Never mind facts, the governor claimed that we truly are Christian warriors, Christian soldiers, battling this separation of church and state which has been driven by the secularists. Yeah, satanic secularists like Thomas Jefferson, who wrote in 1802 about the founders' determination to build that wall of separation to forestall an American Taliban. Oh, pay no attention to history, cried the Right Reverend Rick. It's onward Christian soldiers to take, quote, the decisive action we need to spread God's grace throughout the United States. This is Jim Hightower saying, geez, Mitt Romney is the spreader of God's grace? That's one vicious God. So, how to explain this flow of political magma from Preacher Perry? Easy. He's insane.
If you like these feisty pops of populism that Hightower zings out on the airwaves, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter provides the in-depth lowdown on what the greed heads of Wall Street and the boneheads of Washington are doing to us behind the scenes. With Hightower's saucy Texas humor and truth-telling populist perspective, the lowdown literally can lift you up. And get this, you can have the lowdown delivered to your mailbox or email each month for only $15 a year. Yes, 12 issues, only $15. Check it out, hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, the Workers' Independent News Service. I'm Jesse Russell. In the previous debate, Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney told seniors over the age of 60 that they didn't need to keep listening because they wouldn't be impacted by his Medicare proposals. Families USA Executive Director Ron Pollock said on Thursday that seniors, in fact, should pay close attention to what Romney is selling. His organization laid out 5 key ways in which seniors would be impacted by the Romney-Ryan plans.
It would cause seniors to pay considerably more out of pocket with respect to premiums and other out-of-pocket costs. On average, over the next 10 years, the average increased cost that Medicare beneficiaries would incur would be $347 per year over the next 10 years.
Romney's pledge to repeal the Affordable Care Act on day one of his presidency would reopen the donut hole.
Affordable Care Act fixes this. It fixes it on a gradual basis. Right now, what the Affordable Care Act does is it provides 50% discounts for people purchasing brand name drugs when they are in this coverage gap. Ultimately, by 2020, the Affordable Care Act totally eliminates the donut hole. It eliminates this coverage gap. And so this would be a real help to seniors who have very substantial prescription costs.
Repealing the Affordable Care Act would also put a huge burden of preventive care back on the heads of seniors.
Seniors no longer have to pay anything for those, whether it's deductibles or co-pays. And in 2011, almost 26 million people on the Medicare program availed themselves of this benefit.
Privately run Medicare Advantage programs have undermined traditional Medicare's fiscal health while taking a heavy toll on taxpayers. Doug Cunningham has more.
That's according to a new research article published in the International Journal of Health Services. The researchers say Medicare has overpaid private health insurance companies by a staggering $282.6 billion, most of that in the past 8 years. Authors of the report, Drs. Ida Hellender, Steffi Woolhandler, and David Himmelstein, say that's wasted money that should have been spent on improving patient care, shoring up Medicare's trust fund, or reducing the federal deficit.
You've been listening to WIN, the Workers' Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
Hey, Dad, how do you throw a curveball? How do you build a fort? How do refrigerators run? How do fish learn how to swim?
Kids ask a lot of questions.
How high can you jump?
But you don't have to know every answer.
How many phone numbers are there?
Because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent.
How do cell phones work?
There are thousands of children in foster care who don't need every question answered.
What's electricity?
They just need you.
What's the moon made of?
For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, at our new exciting time live here on Sunday morning.
You know, I was thinking during that break, we are never getting Friedman again.
No. Brad Friedman is out. He will...
we'll have to pre-record Friedman.
Exactly, unless he's still up from the night before, which will make a very interesting interview.
No doubt.
I bet he's still smarter than most people out there, even inebriated.
That's not nice. Although you did send some pictures from Vegas. So
yes.
I'm glad they had fun.
I know. I wish we were there.
Big shout out to Brad and to Carl Frisch.
Absolutely. And just to remind everybody, we have great guests coming up. Cliff Schecter of Libertas, of Al Jazeera English, of course, a regular guest on Take Action News with David Schuster
and also
on
Majority
React
Report
Radio.
on Fridays.
That's right.
Yeah.
He is everywhere. Lizz Winstead, everybody knows who Liz is, but of course, author of Liz Free or Die, and
Again,
co-founder.
The book is out of your arm's reach, isn't it?
Yes. It's right there, I swear. Co-founder of A is For, a pro-women's rights organization, talking about A is for what? It's not just for abortion. And Casey Boyd, author of Being Christian, a novel, who will, challenge the quote-unquote religious right. Very much looking forward to that interview. We've got lots more clips here. I think more clips than we've ever had in one show, at least or on one debate.
Well, that debate was fun to watch. And I think that it really comes down to if you like Joe Biden, you loved it. If you don't like Joe Biden, you hated it.
I completely agree.
So when it comes right down to it, did it sway anybody? I don't think so. The only thing I think it did accomplish is there was this meme out there in the media that there was this slide, which is always self-fulfilling. If the media is saying that everyone's going for Romney, then everyone goes for Romney.
Right. Or
not everyone, but there's movement in the electorate towards and away, and that stopped it.
Well,
it cauterized the wound, so to speak.
As much as yeah, exactly, Shane. As much as people might say that the debate, the presidential debate had a great effect, whether you like this or not, whether you love Biden or you love Ryan or you hated either one of them, probably didn't change the polls too much.
I don't think so. I mean, we'll find out. I would think the polls will be Tuesday or so. And then on top of it, we've got the whole thing. We've talked about the polls being ridiculous. And, I want to point this out.
Okay.
There was CNN did a snap poll, and everyone was going crazy about it. And then there was another snap poll, I think New York Times.
Right. CNN was showing that it looked like Ryan won the debate at 48 to 44.
And then the other one was 60 to 30-something.
Right.
In favor of Biden. And
right.
I was like, I
with
don't
19...
believe it. I don't. And first of all, CNN kind of said, well, we oversampled. But also, if you looked carefully at the polls, and this is the way the graphics were on the television, so I will assume that this is correct. I didn't actually go in and pull up the poll data, because I don't know if it was even available. But the graphic for the CNN was amongst registered voters.
Right. And Shane, many people don't understand this concept of who they should be actually polling now. So why don't you quickly explain it to us?
Well, see, the thing is that, and I'm not a pollster. This is just stuff I've learned from listening very careful to pollsters when they get into the weeds and they get into the technical parts of this. And I exclude Dick Morris from this analysis because he doesn't count, because he's never right. But there's different groups that you can sample. And so you could just call people randomly and say, what do you think? That would be everyone. But the way you figure this out is you ask certain precursor questions or questions at some point in your survey. You have normal people, just everybody. You have citizens. You have people who are registered to vote, and then you have people who are likely to vote.
Right.
Now, those are all, and those get considerably smaller, those groups of people. As we know, voter turnout in this country at its peak is usually in the 50s.
I know.
50 percentiles.
Quite sad, especially after looking at Venezuela's election. But sorry, continue.
So what these pollsters do, is they're going to ask some questions. Are you a citizen? Now, these are all self-reporting things, too, so they can be swayed, pushed around if you have a concerted effort to move these polls, which the right has been known to do. Next question is, are you registered to vote? Then you become part of the registered voter. And then as you get closer to the election, at least the good pollsters will do likely voters.
Right.
And there's different ways to get at that. Many times it's, did you vote in the last presidential election?
Right.
Do you plan on voting in the next election? How enthusiastic are you about voting? And they ascertain whether or not you're a likely voter. And those are numbers you don't really want to look at too soon, because likely voters can drop off. They can become disgruntled. They can become upset. So you don't usually see that a year out.
They can also be, that number of likely voters can also increase as people become passionate about one issue or another, or passionate for or against a particular candidate.
It has to do with enthusiasm, but it's measured by whether or not you voted before. Of course, you have to be registered. And likely voters may go down just as a result of the suppression ID laws.
Absolutely.
So that's a difficult thing to measure. And then the good pollsters are good at weighing, based on those answers, how that's representative of the people who will actually be at the polls, and then how they answer those questions. So there's a lot of statistical analysis, algorithms, all kinds of stuff. Nate Silver could explain it wonderfully. I can't.
I get where you're going with it.
The ones who do it the best are the ones that are more reflective at the time of the election, and people point back and say, see, they were right, and then they get more credibility in the next election.
So, long story short, CNN's use of registered voters is
different
polling
than the New York Times, which was undecided voters. That will account for the difference of those. It was just a different group that you were sampling. You're asking a different group of people. Now, is it significant that it was pretty much a tie among all registered voters? Nah, not really. Because after conventions, the only polls that matter, unless you're looking at trends. If you want to look at trends, you can look at those types of things. But likely voters is the number to look at.
Right.
Likely number of voters, and then divided by states, because we still, believe it or not, and much to Republican chagrin, we use the Electoral College to get our president.
Well, and here's an issue I take also with CNN. I know that they're saying they oversampled Republicans. First off, a lot of the news media, and I've even seen this on the quote-unquote, liberal corporate news, use whichever one of the polls reflects the number they want to represent.
Sure.
And they will use
damn lies,
likely before it's really fitting to be used. They're using registered, even though likely should be used. They're using tracking polls instead of instant polls, or vice versa.
Or
really messing
polls. Or on top of it, they want to look at the entire population. This is one of those elections where you could have, like in 2000, where the winner, well, actually 2000, we'll throw that out the window because the real winner didn't get the presidency. But a situation in which the Electoral College elects a president who doesn't win the popular vote.
Well, but
I think it's possible here.
Right, but my concern right now is you had all of these Republicans when most polls, including Fox News, was showing Obama ahead by a substantial margin. You had many on the right out there complaining about the polls being weighted too heavily in favor of Democrats. And I know that CNN, this recent poll that came out after the vice presidential debate, they afterwards said it was too heavily weighted by Republicans. Well,
Could they
I
be
think
trying to please the right again,
exactly,
like CNN has been?
Exactly. I think that was most likely, this is my opinion. I have nothing to back this up, but it sure seems awfully coincidental to me that very soon after Republicans were out there crying about how polls were reflective of the 2008 race and thus much more heavily weighted for Democrats.
Forgetting
then
the
CNN,
fact that demographics actually change over time.
Exactly. Then CNN has this.
And they don't go backwards.
Right. They specifically changed to weight more heavily to Republicans. I think the only reason...
CNN has been doing this for years now.
Right, but I think the only reason...
Reacting to the right and saying, okay, they're yelling at us for not covering this stupid story which has no credence whatsoever. We'll put Reverend Wright on the air.
Right.
And it's not going to shut them up. And it doesn't mean that it's more newsworthy. It's part of the Fox effect. They report a bogus story. Then they mainstream it. And then they say, why isn't everyone else talking about this? And then you get people like ombuds people from the New York Times saying, well, we better listen to Fox News. No.
Well, but my point is, I think the only reason they even came out and said that the weighting of this poll was wrong is because it was so ridiculous in terms comparative to every other poll,
and therefore
on the
lose
vice
credibility
presidential.
because you're only as credible as your last poll.
So at that point, it's oops, sorry, we didn't mean to. But it makes me question every poll that they've done. Granted, I probably would have anyway, but I would love to see the demographics
I don't question it for
of
a
their.
second.
I do.
I question. It's amongst registered voters, so therefore it's as useful as that, which isn't at all.
True.
It's probably a very credible poll.
Wow. I did say
first
we
of all,
were...
the margin of error is like 5 or 6 points on top of it all, and I'm going to keep interrupting you because I'm sorry. This ticks me off. I think the more accurate poll is among undecided voters. The more important question, whether or not amongst undecided voters, 60-30, whatever it was, is the next question should be, if it's going to be a useful poll, based on that, are you more likely to vote for the person who won that debate? Because that is useful information. Who won doesn't matter. Does that mean as an undecided voter, you just decided? And I think you'll find that the answer was mostly no.
Right, because people don't vote for the vice presidential candidate. They vote for the top of the ticket.
And undecideds, for some reason, seem to like being undecided. They're almost like Justice Kennedy in the Supreme Court. Pay attention to me. Please me. Talk about my issues because I'm the most important voter in the world.
Absolutely.
And I am very independent, which puts me above you. Have you ever been talked down to by an independent? Oh, you liberals.
On a regular basis, actually.
Oh, you don't think for yourself. That's the insinuation. I am a free thinker. You're not. But anyways.
Anyway.
This is what you get in the morning.
Yes, you have had way too much coffee.
I have not yet begun to drink coffee.
Okay, well, anyhow, we are going to really get into the debate a little bit more and have some fun with it in the next segment, I promise, unless Shane drinks some more coffee. So stick around. Don't go anywhere.
Let me go.
Yeah, don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle, and a very caffeinated Shane. Thanks.
Hey, it's Hal Sparks from the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide. And this is Talking Left.
You may be hearing about people having trouble making mortgage payments and risking losing their homes. Many of them just aren't aware of the options that can prevent foreclosure. There are many options available to homeowners, such as repayment and forbearance plans, loan modifications, and even refinancing. Where does someone go for help? They should talk directly with their lender or a qualified HUD-approved counseling agency. Both can provide helpful information without charging a fee. According to PMI Mortgage Insurance Company, it's not a good idea to pay for services that you can get for free from a lender or a qualified nonprofit counseling agency. To learn more, visit homesafepmi.com or call HUD at 1-800-569-4287 for a counseling agency near you. That's 1-800-569-4287. This message is brought to you by PMI, supporting sustainable home ownership that strengthens communities.
Say you want to go to college. Yay! A Big Ten college. But you don't want to feel like part of the, well, you know. Is there an answer for you? Of course. Indiana University East. Indiana University East. You'll get the quality of a Big Ten education in a small college setting. IU East offers more than 50 fields of study, from accounting to political science, taught by internationally recognized faculty with an average of 18 students per class. So it's not, student number 95A-6273, please report to... It's more like, hey, John, welcome to class. Best of all, you'll graduate with one of the most respected degrees anywhere, a degree from IU. Don't wait. Go to iue.edu or call 800-959-EAST to arrange a visit to Indiana University East. IU. Focused on you.
When our daughter Ava was 4, we noticed she didn't talk much. A genetic test revealed that she had hearing loss caused by 2 mutated genes. One she inherited from myself, the other from her dad. If it weren't for the amazing people at U of M, we might have never known the true cause of Ava's hearing loss or how to properly treat it.
The University of Michigan C.S. Mott Children's Hospital is one of only a handful of hospitals in the world researching genetic hearing loss in addition to treating it. Our breakthrough research and advanced treatments combined with outstanding care help us change children's lives in extraordinary ways. For the leaders who invest in pediatric care, call a Mott Patient Advisor at 877-475-MOTT or visit mottchildren.org.
She is more talkative now and more social. She loves music now. She's humming to the music, and it's sweet to actually hear her humming.
To learn more, call 877-475-MOTT.
They not only helped us find answers, they helped Ava find her voice.
That's the Michigan difference.
We Act Radio is a very proud partner of the Start at Westminster, a harm reduction, prevention, and awareness initiative sponsored by the Westminster Presbyterian Church right here in D.C. START stands for Syringe, Treatment, Advocacy, Resources, Training. These are the core elements of the harm reduction philosophy at START. The goal of this program is to reduce transmissions of HIV, hepatitis, and other blood-borne infectious diseases by empowering those at risk of infection with the tools, resources, and referrals they need to take charge of their health. Over the past year, the Start at Westminster tested over 1,600 people, and they're averaging about 150 tests each month. And of course, with the proper funding, that number could go even higher. For more information on this terrific program, go to www.startatwestminster.org or visit the Westminster Presbyterian Church, 400 I Street Southwest, right here in Washington, D.C.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We are having fun and enjoying this Sunday morning. Hope everybody likes the new time as much as we do. So we've been talking about the debate, talking about polls, having some interesting discussion here on the show. And we got to hear what Shane's favorite clip was. And I think that was a really good one. Shane, would you like to know what my favorite clip of the show was?
I would love to.
Of the debate? Excuse me.
I'm dying to know.
I have to say that when Joe Biden actually called out Romney and Ryan for, not caring about 47% of the people, for signing pledges to Grover Norquist, I was nearly standing on the couch applauding in awe. Do we have that clip?
Which one is it?
I think it's clip 19.
Then yes.
All right.
But it shouldn't be surprising for a guy who says 47% of the American people are unwilling to take responsibility for their own lives. My friend recently in a speech in Washington said 30% of the American people are takers. These people are my mom and dad, the people I grew up with, my neighbors. They pay more effective tax than Governor Romney pays in his federal income tax. They are elderly people who, in fact, are living off of Social Security. There are veterans and people fighting in Afghanistan right now who are, quote, not paying any taxes. I've had it up to here with this notion that 47%, it's about time they take some responsibility here. And instead of signing pledges to Grover Norquist not to ask the wealthiest among us to contribute to bring back the middle class, they should be signing a pledge saying to the middle class, we're going to level the playing field.
Seriously? I don't know how many people follow Sarah Cosgrove on Twitter, but I will not quote her tweet, but I'll say I agree with it.
Oh, come on.
Let's just say I will do naughty things to Joe Biden.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
She's worth following.
Yes, she's a great,
cool.
a great tweeter. I think it's SA_Cosgrove. I'm not sure. But to actually hear a politician, let alone the vice president of America, to call Romney and Ryan out on exactly what all of us have been saying. Well, what Romney's been running for like ever now. So we've been saying it just about that long. But specifically on the pledge to Grover Norquist. As if...
Which, in all fairness, not that there should be, he tries to divert. It's not a pledge to me. It's a pledge to the American people. Well, the American people don't agree with you, Grover.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm sorry, it's not a pledge to the American people, unless it's saying, we pledge to screw you over.
There you go.
And if that was so true, why are they so against tax cuts for the middle class? Why can't they separate out tax cuts for the rich and tax cuts for the middle class? If you're for every freaking tax cut, then let's see you prove it. But to actually see somebody get called out on that, I have to say I was hooting and hollering and cheering as if I was watching a football game. It was awesome.
A football game where the outcome really matters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you know what?
Really
You're right.
matters.
You're right.
Really matters.
But it's just I'm so tired of even the great politicians, those on, who could be quote unquote progressives, not calling it just like it is, not saying exactly what needs to be said, and dancing around the issues of stuff like the Grover Norquist's pledge. I'm so sick of people pretending like they have to be politically correct and polite to their opponents who are willing to screw over the American people so that millionaires can get another tax cut. I don't care about their feelings anymore. I don't care how...
And they also couch it in language where, of course, they don't... Paul Ryan doesn't look at a camera and say, I'm going to screw over the middle class.
Of course not.
But they try to couch it in very happy language, job creators and tax cuts for everyone and blah, 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 but when you cut right down to the core of it. And that's what also is being done in that.
Just like Joe Biden said in the interview, what did he say? 97% of small businesses make under $250,000 a year.
And that was a point when Barack Obama first brought up this entire tax cut plan that he was going to $250,000 less. He said that affects almost 98% of small businesses will get a tax cut.
Yeah, so don't...
And he's done it 12 other times.
Right. So Romney and Ryan standing up there saying that they're fighting for tax cuts for small business. No, you're not. Just be straight with the American people. That tell us why you think hedge fund managers are important. Maybe then you'd have a case. Maybe then you'd have some credibility. But right now, go Joe. That was my favorite clip, and I hope everybody enjoyed it just as much as I did. We have lots more show coming up, and I think finally my coffee is starting to kick in too. Hope everybody's enjoying this Sunday alternative to corporate talk. So we're going to be right back here on Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. And in just a little while, be joined by some great guests, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Controversy.
It's Tuesday, October 2nd, 2012.
Day one, we say yes to Keystone. Day one,
Paul Ryan lies about the Keystone XL pipeline.
He said the polar bears are dying because of global warming, but that claim has one scientist in hot water himself.
Not anymore. That Arctic scientist cleared. The Monsanto effect, GMO crops causing a rise in superbugs. Carmageddon 2. Hollywood loves a successful sequel, and this one has a silver lining. Plus,
places where we still have really pristine backcountry areas that don't have roads in them, that don't have a long history of logging or mining or other heavy development, are pretty rare.
America's wilderness to remain wild for now.
All of that and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comments.
Don't you think the jury should be allowed to hear this stuff?
If Americans cared about evidence, wouldn't we be doing something about global warming?
Well said, Mr. Colbert. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, say it ain't so. Paul Ryan out on the stump lying about things?
I know, he's earning his nickname of Lion Ryan. At a campaign rally in Iowa on Tuesday morning, GOP vice presidential candidate Representative Paul Ryan ignored concerns that a spill from the controversial proposed Keystone XL pipeline would contaminate the Midwest's rivers and drinking water aquifers. He also, he lied to Iowans about where that dirty tar sands oil will actually be sold.
And I guarantee you, on day one, Keystone Pipeline is approved. We pick up the phone, call the Canadians, and say, send it here, don't send it to China. That will help us lower gas prices.
Okay, let's just say there's two things wrong with that. Canada already sells all of its tar sands oil to us using a pipeline that stops in Oklahoma. They want to build the Keystone XL pipeline so that they can ship that tar sands oil to China. And every analysis since then has shown the Keystone XL pipeline will actually raise retail gas prices, especially in the Midwest.
Two other points I'd like to add here. One, it was in fact Nebraska Republicans which put the kibosh on the Keystone XL pipeline for the moment. They didn't want it contaminating their drinking water, and they've required that the EPA therefore do a new environmental impact study. So as much as Paul Ryan may want to come to office on day one and approve the Keystone XL pipeline, it still must be approved by the EPA before the executive branch can give it the okay, by law, if I'm not mistaken.
Yet another scientist cleared of all wrongdoing. Last July, the right-wing media jumped on an internal Interior Department investigation of an Arctic scientist. Here's Steve Ducey of Fox News.
Charles Monette, a government scientist in Alaska, wrote a 2004 article about polar bears drowning in the Arctic. Well, this month, that scientist was put on leave pending an investigation into integrity issues, possibly linked to that article. We'll keep you posted.
Except Fox News has not reported that the Arctic scientist, Charles Monette, has been officially cleared of all allegations of scientific misconduct after a 2-year investigation. Monette did receive a reprimand, however, for leaking emails that revealed the Bush administration's suppression of scientific evidence of the dangers of offshore drilling in the Arctic.
And yet Fox didn't keep us posted?
No, they didn't.
I'm shocked. I don't know what to say.
Oh, the irony. U.S. farmers are using more pesticides than ever now and using more dangerous pesticides than ever because genetically modified crops have led to a rise in pesticide-resistant superbugs and superweeds. According to a new study from Washington State University, in just 15 years, biotech giant Monsanto's patented GMO crops have caused a rise in at least 20 species of insects and weeds that are now resistant to Monsanto's own Roundup pesticide.
Wait, the pesticides themselves have caused an increase in bugs?
Yes, they have, and crop scientists actually predicted this, and now farmers are being forced to revert to even higher quantities of older, even more dangerous pesticides.
Oh, you and your scientific gobbledygook.
The nation's wilderness shall remain wilderness for now. After 12 years of litigation, the U.S. Supreme Court, in its new term starting this week, has declined to hear an appeal from logging and mining interests over the so-called roadless rule. That's a Clinton-era Interior Department rule that protects what remains of the public's wilderness lands from logging, mining, and road building, meaning that the roadless rule remains the rule, at least until the next legal challenge. Speaking of roads, a silver lining to Carmageddon 2 in Los Angeles. The second full closure of one of the nation's busiest freeways this past weekend for an improvement project was nicknamed Carmageddon because it was expected to cause epic traffic jams. But LA residents proved not only can they successfully cut back on road travel, but also a new UCLA study shows that last year's Carmageddon actually cleared the air. Air quality in the area over that weekend improved 75%.
I say let's make every weekend Carmageddon here in L.A. That would work for me. For all of those stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Remember, you can download us anytime on iTunes, listen to us anytime on your mobile device via Stitcher Radio, follow us 24/7 on the Twitters at Green News Report, and find us, and yes, please like us, on the Facebook. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
On the road again, going places that I've never been, seeing things that I may never see again. I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, like a band of gypsies, we go down the highway.
CNN, ESPN, ABC, BCB, TNT, but mostly BS.
This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Into hour 2 of this new morning time slot. Hope everybody out there is having a wonderful Sunday morning. You know, the big outcry on the right regarding the vice presidential debate was, of course, Joe Biden's facial expressions and laughter.
Yes.
So,
and I think that's a reasonable thing to point out.
I think it's a reasonable thing to point out. I think their level of discussing it is quite a bit unreasonable.
Yeah.
But it brings us to the question whether or not it's appropriate. Is it appropriate to laugh during that debate, or is it inappropriate?
And first of all, what are the... Okay, let's start with the premise, and I believe this is a reasonable one, that what Paul Ryan was saying was a bunch of malarkey.
Yes.
To borrow a term.
Heard that somewhere.
Now, if you were in a debate, if anybody was in a debate, we know of one way to respond to this. President Obama showed us one of them last week.
Right.
And he got uniformly panned by the left and the right. We'll get into whether or not that was fair with Cliff Schecter at the bottom of the hour.
Right.
But certainly, if we're going to talk about conservative reaction, which we'll play a few clips coming up here, just standing there, taking it, writing notes, being respectful, you suck, you're a wimp.
Right.
You're lazy.
Doesn't play out so well in the polls.
You're lazy.
Right.
You're dumb. You're in over your head. You look small, professorial, all the words they used for President Obama. Okay, so what else can we do? We can get angry.
Right. Which many people watching the first presidential debate, or many people watching any one of Paul Ryan or Mitt Romney's speeches do. We do get angry. We get very frustrated by the repeated lies.
But that's us, and we're not running for the highest and
right.
one heartbeat away from the highest, So getting angry, well, first of all, certainly President Obama can't do that.
No.
Because they'll trot out the angry black man all day.
Absolutely.
They don't have to put up the Reverend Wright. Instead, they can put up just President Obama getting angry. So you can't get angry. Okay. So you can't just sit there. You can't get angry. What else do you have left?
Laughter.
Right. Now, we have some clips. Hang on. This is the one that really stood out. I mean, we heard this live, and actually watching the debate, you could see this coming a mile away. Because on the actual content, Biden kicked his butt.
Right.
So they're going to find the one thing.
Exactly. They can't discuss the content because they know they'll actually have to explain.
Right.
Ryan's lies. So what do?
And everyone's talking about the style, but I think we were going to go into it a little bit more. But here's the right's general reaction.
I have to say, I think I have watched almost every presidential and vice presidential debate since the first 4 Kennedy-Nixon debates in 1960, and thinking back over the last few minutes, I don't believe that I have ever seen a debate in which one participant was as openly disrespectful of the other, as Biden was to Paul Ryan tonight. And that's what it was. You can talk about the smirks, the smiles, the head shaking, the mugging. It was openly contemptuous and disrespectful.
I think it's disrespectful to lie to the American people, but that's just me, and we're not talking about that right now. Whether or not Biden's approach was appropriate, I think it was the best reaction you could have given the circumstance. Right. Just like you just said, Shane, you can get angry. He could have interrupted even more because there were so many lies there. It essentially was, like living in a fairy tale. Or he could have had a reaction similar to President Obama, and we all saw how well that played out.
Right.
So, what
but there's
option
also
did he have?
something about laughing, and I want to get into this. Because I did some research, and these are something I'd studied a while ago, college and things like that, and it's not that wonky. I'll explain it kind of quickly. Back in the 50s, 60s, there was this thing called the Milgram experiments.
Right.
And in a nutshell, and a lot of people probably know about this, it was generally an experiment where they're trying to test how far a human being will go when faced with an authority figure. And the way the experiment was set up, the person was brought in and they were told it was a memory test. And there were two people involved in the experiment. The second person was in on the prank, so to speak, prank.
Right.
It really wasn't a prank. It actually, caused quite a bit of psychological damage to the subjects. That's a whole different discussion. So they sit down and essentially ask these memory questions of someone in another room that they can't see. And if they got something wrong, they were told there's an electric shock, and they had to push the button and administer this electric shock on to a person. You're shocking them for getting it wrong. And they would have yells and screams, and they had a big dial and more electricity, and they wanted to essentially see how far that authority figure telling them you have to shock them, they would go. And it was, it was to see, whether or not someone would put away their own inhibitions of harming another person because that authority figure told you to. But that's the side issue on this. One thing they found that came out of this experiment, and when you see the tapes of them, they're all in black and white, that people would laugh.
Out of nervousness.
Right. It's called nervous laughter, but this is the first time it was really documented and explained.
Inability to process the situation.
And also, something more important, laughing actually de-stresses the body. It is a reaction to it. It releases endorphins in your brain so that when you are faced with something that is monumentally stressful, sometimes that inappropriate laughter increases that endorphins. It makes your body, and it relaxes your body in a stressful situation. It is a involuntary defense mechanism inside of your body, chemical.
Right. I think some of Joe Biden's laughter could be explained by that.
Sure.
By that, but I think the majority...
when faced with the absolute opposite of the truth, and you're in a debate in front of millions of people, laughing, and I understand he's going to do it out loud just because you also laughing, looking into it, is a way of including people.
Right.
You laugh to say, come along with me on this fairy tale ride. Isn't he full of crap? Right.
It's also a way of letting people watching. It's a subconscious thing. A subconscious way of letting people watching. He's not realizing he's doing this, but it's a way of saying, I'm okay. I can handle this. I got this.
And don't freak out like we all do with the TV.
Right.
It's going to be all right. It's a way of communicating. It's a way of calming. It's a way of calming yourself and calming others.
Right. And while many of us out there who are clearly in support of Biden in the debate would have just as much loved to see him be straight up aggressive with Ryan and say, without the laughter, without the levity, say,
but then
you're
he would
lying.
have been angry.
But then we would get angry. We would follow along, and we would be angry, like,
and there's so
wanting
much
to...
derisiveness that they're actually saying that the Obama campaign it's all about nasty, mean, undercutting, lies, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Which is just flat-out projection.
Well, they're good at that. They're exceptionally good at that lately.
Right. So...
long story short, I think Joe Biden's laughter was completely appropriate. I think it was the best reaction he could have had in the given situation. The American people need to have somebody call Romney and Ryan out directly and to their face about their lies. They
he
need
almost
that.
said the word lie, by the way.
Yes, he said candid.
That's a big... And he says he's being less than candid.
Right.
I wish he'd stop telling I wish he'd be candid. And I almost wonder if that was a little bit of a setup.
I think it's a specific disservice to the American people to pretend like what these men are saying is not utter malarkey, to borrow a word.
Right. But then on top of it, the right has taken this even further, haven't they?
Right. They've gone even further, insinuating that Joe Biden is, quote, off his rocker.
Well, this is what the Fox News does, the Fox so-called news, the Fox News in quotes does. They start with, that was really disrespectful. And then they go to unhinged, and then they go to manic, and then they go to drunk.
Right.
Mike
But what did
Huckabee.
we...
Then they go to unbalanced. Then they go...
Off his meds.
Do you want a drunk crazy man running the country?
Right. They can't use dog whistle politics to talk about Joe Biden's race. So now they'll add in dog whistle politics to talk about his sanity.
Right.
And you know you're going to see the ad of Joe Biden laughing and
The
the 3 a.m. phone call. Frankly, I would love a leader who can deal with a serious situation with levity and honesty.
Honesty, most important.
And be approachable and friendly when the leaders of other countries around the world challenge him on something. Right. Instead of being a dictator, instead of being aggressive, which could lead to a war, he's approachable.
There's an important distinction to be made because they're also trying to blur this line, that he was laughing about the subject matter. He was not laughing about the subject matter. Any reasonable person knows that he is a very serious person, especially on foreign policy.
Well, and especially on when it comes to our military and our veterans, him and Jill Biden have done extraordinary things.
And their
to
sons
help
actually went to war.
Right.
But on top of it, the thing is he wasn't laughing that people were killed in Benghazi. He was laughing that you were flat out lying about the situation, not about the underlying situation itself.
And perhaps, just maybe, he was laughing about somebody who has not been briefed on intelligence, pretending they know what the intelligence is better than the president and the vice president do. Because that, in and of itself, is pretty damn ridiculous.
They do get some briefings, by the way.
Right, but
They're
they do
not complete.
Right.
They do, as part of the transitional situations, certain classified.
Right. So,
which I think is a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, all in all, I think it was perfectly appropriate. I think what is inappropriate is, just like you said, Shane, the implying that Joe Biden is crazy.
Well, they start with the facts, then they put their opinion in that it was disrespectful. Then they start pushing crazier opinions, and then they're going to just keep pushing the envelope.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this on the Journal editorial report yesterday.
Yeah.
I can't remember which one of the guests said it, but they couldn't tell if his medication was just kicking in or just wearing off.
Yeah.
That's great, because he said he started with laughter and ended at anger. I couldn't tell if his medication was just kicking in or just starting to wear off.
Right, and as far as I know, only one candidate's emotional balance has been put into question by anyone, and you know what that is.
Yeah, actually, Ann Romney questioned her husband's mental and emotional state. That's the only one who's officially been questioned. So I would assume that maybe that statement was meant to Romney.
And by the way, you notice how the left handled that? We pretty much said we don't know what to do with this. We'll leave it alone, because that's a really serious charge to level.
Right. You can make a joke about it. You can say something like that. But to actually insist, granted, we can all have our opinions, but to actually insist that Romney's mental state is in question.
Right. We've talked about his affect, how he can't connect and things like that. But to say there's something, they're essentially saying there's something clinically wrong with Joe Biden.
Or that he's a drunk.
Well, yeah. Mike Huckabee, I don't have the clip flat out saying he was like your drunk uncle, your angry drunk uncle.
And which is so funny to me that the party, and especially the quote-unquote news channel, that projects hatred, anger, lies, violence, all of this constantly, has the audacity to call a man that was laughing your angry drunk uncle. I didn't sense any... anger was not at all. Not the emotion I saw Joe Biden project.
Not at all.
Absolutely not. Maybe frustration.
In fact, I think he was working very hard to not. I think it was his way of not being angry.
Right.
It was his way of saying, I've got two ways to go. I'm really upset about this, but it's better to smile and say, okay, we'll deal with this one fact and lie at a time.
I have to say that he handled it much better than I could have. Because there would have been some expletives on that stage, like you're a bleep, 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 bleep liar. Fill in the blanks.
Which is why you didn't grab the nomination this time around.
Exactly. That's the only reason.
Because otherwise you were a shoo-in.
Absolutely. Couldn't you see Vice President Leftneck chick?
I love it.
So we're going to
run
run
country to the White House.
Exactly. You know, hey, little redneck in the White House never hurt anybody. We're going to go ahead and run to a quick break. And in a few minutes, we're going to come back with Cliff Schecter. Of course, you can check out all his great stuff at Libertas, at Al Jazeera English, on Take Action News every Saturday with David Schuster on Ring of Fire. Is that what you said? He's also on Ring of Fire?
Schecter's on Majority Report.
Majority Report.
Sam Cedar.
Sam Cedar.
Fridays.
See, Sam's everywhere.
And
so
he's also, I'm sure
I got my Sam
he's
shows.
on Ring of Fire at 3 p.m. on Saturdays, too. He's everywhere.
Exactly. So
Most importantly, he's here.
Most importantly, he's here. And we look forward to hearing his analysis of the debate and more. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shano. We'll be right back after this break.
It reflects the drama of the human experience, and isn't that the essence of art?
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm 29 years old and have a career that I love as a systems analyst. Career. It still sounds cool to say that word. I never could have gotten on this path without a college degree. And if the college me were here, he'd tell you.
I never would have gotten to college without big brothers, big sisters. I could have ended up anywhere, on the streets even. But college? Joe Thompson? Not likely. My big brother helped me out. He taught me I could do anything, at a time when a lot of people were saying just the opposite.
And to a 7-year-old, that means a lot. My big brother's name is Phil. And Phil is the reason that this 7-year-old grows up to be a systems analyst.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child. And that can last a lifetime. Start something today at BigBrothersBigSisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
Breast health awareness is critical for all women, particularly African Americans, because we have an increased risk of dying from breast cancer compared to women of other backgrounds. At U of M, I'm doing research here and with women in Ghana to look for an inherited link that makes African and African American women susceptible to a more aggressive type of cancer. Finding this link, I believe, will make new treatments possible. But right now, making sure that you are properly screened is our best protection.
With experts like Dr. Lisa Newman, the University of Michigan Health System is a leader in cancer care. When you call our free Cancer Answer line at 800-865-1125, an oncology nurse will answer any questions you might have about the prevention, screening, and treatment of breast cancer and other forms of cancer. All calls are confidential. Call 800-865-1125 or visit uofmhealth.org/cancer answer line.
We're working to help everyone enjoy longer, healthier lives.
That's the Michigan difference.
Hey there, Matthew Filipovich here, host of the creatively titled Matthew Filipovich Show, which, by the way, you can hear every single Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on 1480 a.m. We Act Radio. Now, I'm going to be honest with you people. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I like talking to smart people who are smarter than me, some of the smartest, funniest, most badass progressives out there. People like Glenn Greenwald, Naomi Klein, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, Jamie Kilstein, Allison Kilkenny, Alan Grayson, Jeremy Scahill, Jim Hightower, and more. That's right, I said more. Don't believe me? Well, tune into the Matthew Filipovich Show every single Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. for some of the best in liberal talk, news, comedy, and interviews right here on 1480 a.m. We Act Radio.
Friends, David Schuster here, and all of us at We Act Radio are so proud of our neighbors here in Southeast D.C., especially one of our partners, the Ark. The Ark is at 1901 Mississippi Avenue Southeast. It's the home to some of Washington's best, including the Washington Ballet, the Levine School of Music, Boys and Girls Club, and the Children's Health Project. All provide a number of programs and services Within the very same facility, the Ark is also home to the Ark Theater, the only theater east of the river, which hosts a variety of dance, music, and theatrical shows each year. Almost everything you could want is at the Ark, so stop by and see them. The Ark, 1901 Mississippi Avenue in Southeast. For more information, visit the Ark's website, www.thearkdc.org, or call 202-889-5901. The Ark, part of Southeast D.C.
Father, 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 help us, send some guidance from above. These people got me questioning, where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love? Where is the love?
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We've got just a few minutes before we're joined by the great Cliff Schecter. And so we wanted to figure out, hypothesize a little bit. Will this VP debate affect polls? I don't think it's going to have a big effect on presidential polls, except for, Shane, as you mentioned earlier, to quote-unquote stop the slide. But I do think this may have a larger effect on down-ticket races.
Yes.
On
whether the love will drift downward.
Exactly.
Where is that love?
Exactly. I think this is going to happen in a couple different ways, personally. Number one, just reigniting the base, reinvigorating people's desire to fight for their quote-unquote side. But I also think it's going to serve as somewhat of an inspiration to senators and congresspeople running in elections all throughout the country. You know, if Biden can get a positive reaction by coming out there and being forceful and standing up for the middle class and the working poor in America, then they can too. And it won't just be the Sherrod Browns and the Bernie Sanders and the few really great leaders we have in this country that are willing to risk their political career on doing what they believe is right.
Another thing, if I can interrupt too, because we only have like a minute.
Sure.
Early voting. Democrats are known for voting early in big numbers.
Right.
Early voting is going on in a number of states. Early voting helps Democrats. And for the base to be fired up to get out there, this is a turn out the vote type of thing, which
That's
could
a
be,
great point.
Because, one, you've got this ongoing suppression ID thing, so people are even more like, you are not taking my vote away from me.
Yep.
They're getting out there, and to get out there and to be enthused, the base to be enthused by what Joe Biden was saying, that there is something worth fighting for here. Get out there, get voting, and vote early. You're talking about Ohio and Iowa, two of the big states electorally in this election.
Well, so, and speaking of voting and speaking of voting and down ticket and the something to fight for, I think maybe I'm just an optimist, but it also gives the few progressives that maybe aren't that happy with Obama a glimmer of hope. Maybe not much to go on, but a glimmer of hope that ticket can be even more progressive in a second term, that when not bound by having to be reelected, they can actually fight for some of the things that we all wanted them to in the first term. So hopefully we won't be disappointed again, but the Supreme Court's stupid, so no matter what, we know we got to get out there and vote. We're going to come back with Cliff Schecter, of course, who is everywhere and who is a big name in progressive radio. He's going to help us break down some of these questions we have about today. He's what?
Kind of our boss now, too.
He's kind of our boss now, too.
Yes. Yeah, we are.
Yes. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We'll be right back with Cliff Schecter in just a few minutes.
This is going to be fun.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
As they drill for quick corporate profits deep inside our Earth, such natural gas frackers as ExxonMobil and Halliburton are not only causing enormous harm to people's health, the environment, and local economies all across the country, but they're also fracking something essential to a properly functioning democratic society: truth. They are hailing themselves both as exemplars of free market success and as the virtuous ones in our society. They're producers and makers, as contrasted to the mass of Americans that the far-right corporatists are now openly calling moochers and takers. The current natural gas boom, the frackers exclaim in a self-serving narrative fabricated by their PR departments and political front groups, is a victory over those wimpy and undeserving producers of wind and solar power who are dependent on government subsidies to get up and running. The shale gas boom, wrote the oil and gas-funded American Enterprise Institute this year, has occurred, quote, away from the greedy grasp of Washington. AEI's laissez-faire fabulous snidely added that surely Washington would have done something to slow it down, tax it more, or stop it altogether had the bureaucrats realized that private enterprise was making such progress. Indeed, crowed an industry PR group, the free market has worked its magic. Sheesh, their BS goes deeper than their fracking gas wells. First, magicians don't perform magic, they do illusions. Second, for 3 decades, the federal government has pumped more than $100 million into research for the frackers, finding ways to make the technique work. And since 1980, the big bad government they now badmouth has paid frackers more than $10 billion in a subsidy written specifically for them. This is Jim Hightower saying, these oil giants aren't the virtuous ones, they're liars, fracking their own integrity.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham.
Our message is listen to your associates. Stop retaliating. We're not trying to shut down this company. We're trying to make it better for ourselves and for our customers.
Evelyn Cruz, one of the Walmart workers who rallied at the company headquarters in Bentonville, Arkansas on Wednesday. Walmart workers in 6 cities, including Los Angeles and Dallas, have walked off their jobs recently in the first ever wave of strikes against Walmart operations. The win by striking Walmart warehouse workers in Illinois is inspiring other Walmart worker activists like Cruz to redouble their efforts. From the Bentonville, Arkansas rally, Cruz said for most Walmart workers, earning a living is next to impossible due to the part-time status and low wages.
We are human beings trying to take care of our families, trying to make a living for ourselves, an honest living, and this company is just not even giving us a chance to earn a living there. It's extremely hard. If you don't have a supportive family, you are not making a living there, let alone trying to support a family.
One U.S. renewable energy industry is getting pinched after losing a tax credit. Jesse Russell reports.
The U.S. wind turbine industry is starting to feel the impact of Congress not renewing a tax credit that benefits that industry. 75 workers were let go on Tuesday at a blade factory in Colorado. In late September, American Wind Energy Association CEO Denise Bode pled with Congress to renew the credit due to the detrimental impact it would have on well-paying skilled jobs in that industry. Since the credit expired, Siemens has cut nearly 700 jobs, Katana Summit has announced plans to close plants in Nebraska and Washington, and Molded Fiberglass shaved 92 jobs in South Dakota. The tax credit has been credited with helping to provide companies in the wind industry with the ability to create more than 20,000 jobs. Without the credit being renewed, it's projected that just as many jobs as were created will likely be lost. The tax credit expired due to opposition by the Republican Party in the House of Representatives.
American Crystal Sugar has locked out its 1,300 union workers for 14 months now while it makes record profits and its CEO's salary skyrockets. The AFL-CIO has called for a nationwide boycott of American Crystal Sugar to begin October 15th. Here are some of the kids of the locked out workers speaking about the injustice of the lockout.
It's hard because my dad has worked so hard and so has my mom, and just to see somebody be this uncaring about the families, it's really heartbreaking.
It's been really hard for our family. I wrote in my letter that I hope we get to pay the bills, make sure we keep our house.
I'm only 11 years old and I worry about those things because, well, you just think about it and thinking about it gets you scared and you want to help, but you can't do nothing.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. It's kind of like an elephant is on my chest. I feel like I'm choking. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. Here's how to prevent them. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
Just the thought of you can drive me wild. Oh, you make me smile.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We are so honored to have a great guest on the phone, Cliff Schecter of Libertas, of We Act Radio, of like everywhere and everything. Cliff, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate your having me on and that kind introduction.
Oh, well, we love having you. You know a thing or two about a thing or two.
A thing or two. I don't know if I take it much beyond that, but yeah, you know, a little bit here, a little bit there.
Well, and you just got in from Las Vegas. It seems like everybody in radio was out there. What exactly was going on in Las Vegas?
Well, it's because you guys probably know Mike Papantonio, the illustrious Mike Papantonio of Ring of Fire Radio, a great show. Mike is a trial lawyer and holds these seminars. They're called Mass Torts Made Perfect, and they sort of are seminars that help train lawyers about new and emerging cases. Essentially, as people may know, trial lawyers are kind of our last line of defense against corporations harming us, especially when regulations disappear. And so Mike is a pioneer, and I should just call him by what I call him, Pap, as we all do, is a pioneer in this stuff. And he has these conferences twice a year, and I actually do. I'm close with the guys. I do PR for these conferences, so I go out. But Sam Cedars out there because he's on Ring of Fire, and there are a whole lot of people that are out here that I know you guys that were out there this time. Tom Hartman. Spoke, and so Tom was out there with Louise, and you may know Carl Frisch and company. They were out there, and yeah, it was a good crew.
Well, I'm glad you guys had such a great time and got to hang out with such great people. Anytime listening to Mike Papantonio is a good time in my book.
He is one heck of a speaker. So yes, listening to Mike is not a guy that minces words, and he has his thoughts together. Essentially, every time he talks, you feel like he's giving the opening to like a great trial, like Clarence Darrow speaking or something. So he's fantastic. Yeah, I'm a big fan, and I go to these things twice a year. It's a blast. There's some great people show up, and they're interesting and they're fun. So
that's awesome.
So I'm a fan.
Well, Cliff, you have been in and around politics for some time. You know your stuff. And so one of the questions that I thought you could help us answer is, where are we now after this vice presidential debate? Do you think this debate has changed the perception of the election at all? Do you think it's had any effect?
I think it staunched the bleeding, which is good. Even I guess it was a Reuters poll that just came out also showed that people thought by about 9 or 10 points Biden won. I don't know who it is who thought that Paul Ryan won that debate. I mean, honestly, I thought Joe Biden in every way, stylistically and with substance, destroyed him. And again, that's not my bias showing, because very immediately after the Obama debate, I said that was just about the most terrible thing I'd seen a Democrat in terms of a Democrat debating. So,
I agree.
I've been pretty honest. I try to be honest with these things. So I don't really understand it. But, it seems like, and especially they went to swing voters there was one that showed in Ohio, and they had, I'm trying to remember the exact margin. I might get it wrong. But Biden's up by 15 or 20 points in terms of swing voters and those that hadn't decided here yet. I think that's what it was. So my guess is yes, because the truth is that there are bad performances and there are bad performances, and there's just no getting around it. I mean, President Obama was so bad in the debate, showed so little kind of will to fight and enthusiasm. I think if he had just lost the debate and sort of, Mitt Romney did slightly better, it wouldn't have been as big a deal. But he didn't look like he wanted to be president anymore or wanted to be there. And Mitt Romney lied constantly and was not challenged on it. And by the time you're done, that added up to a disaster. So, we need to put all that in perspective. Even after that disaster, President Obama was still leading, had a clear lead in Nevada, New Hampshire, Iowa, Ohio. It seems like he, in most of the polls, either is tied or has a slight lead still in Florida. Same thing with Virginia. And the truth is he could lose some of those places. I don't want him to, but he could lose Florida and still win. Whereas Mitt Romney loses Florida and Ohio, the game is not even close. It's so over.
Right.
He's still in pretty good shape, and I think the Biden performance probably helped stop people from drifting away, maybe moved a few people back in their direction, and that's a good thing. Because the status quo, even before all the terrible month for Mitt Romney, was a status quo that favored Obama. I talked a lot about Ohio because I live here, and I think it's hard for people to sometimes sort of analyze why it's so disproportionately pro-Obama. I mean, people look at polls will see that the Midwest is, or at least before the debates, maybe that's changed, is the only place where white working-class voters favored Obama over Romney. He's slightly behind in the Northeast and the West, and of course way behind the South. We don't need to get into that. But there's a reason, because people don't care about specific policies, but they care about emotionally knowing that you're on their side. It's something that Sherrod Brown has done so well in this state, which is why.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, so people try to say, oh, he's too liberal, and they don't get it. He's a populist. People know he's with them, and some working-class voters may disagree with him on some social issues, but they know he's out there fighting for them, so that's okay. And after a few things happened here, after John Kasich stupidly, unbelievably decided to go after firefighters and police, the Fraternal Order of Police endorsed Sherrod Brown for the U.S. Senate. It's the first time they've endorsed a Democrat since Metzenbaum in '88. I think the firefighters are supporting Obama. They had done that since Clinton in '96. They pushed away these two groups, big groups of sort of white working-class voters who are angry at them and viscerally angry at them. You can see it when you go around. You can see the bumper stickers and stuff if you go to fire stations and the rest. So there's that. Then the auto bailout. They started talking about it in the way they should have forever in that convention, in the Democratic convention. And so then people started saying, wow, they're on the Obama, Sherrod Brown, these guys are on our side. You combine the auto bailout, which saves it's somewhere between 1 in 6 to 1 in 8 jobs in this state, with what Kasich did to workers, the fact that the Priorities USA, the super PAC, smartly ignored all these smart people, as Rick Santorum would call them, in Washington. No, I mean, some of the people who were like, oh, those ads won't work and they're over the top. No, they were telling a true story about what Mitt Romney did. Right. Now even more is coming out with this whole Sensata episode that you guys
Bainville, or Bainport, they're calling it over there in Sensata.
Yeah, where they're literally making U.S. workers train their Chinese counterparts under the Chinese flag so that they can give them their jobs. I think we'll probably be hearing more about that. But that some of those ads that were here, they kept playing here, and in Iowa, and in Michigan, and in Pennsylvania. And then, there's a reason why those states all started pulling away.
Absolutely. You speak of those ads, and especially bringing up Sensata and the auto bailout. It makes me wonder if there are any perceptions out there that can really be changed at this point. We hear constantly about these independent voters. Is it really that there's this large group that hasn't decided yet, or is it the extremes, those who are so far right that Romney's not far right enough for them, and those who are so, progressive and so to the left that they're upset with Obama for many issues? Right. Is there really this big center that are swing voters?
It's all of the above, and that's the thing that's amazing to me, is because what we do is we always try to categorize everything. It's kind of like what I was saying when people didn't really. I watch people sometimes, and I grew up in New York City, and I lived in Washington D.C., and so I was one of those coastal guys too. And I now live in Ohio, and I understand sometimes it's very easy from afar to try to diagnose something when you don't really know much about it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And you see that, you saw that happening with the case of in some of these debates, with, again, when we're talking about things like Sensata and things like that, people don't understand how much that affects people, and how people react to some of the ads, like those Priorities USA ads, which are just, and so you see a lot of of the misdiagnosis here, and you see that with independents too, where people try to say, well, moderate independent, it's kind of like those two words are attached at the hip.
Yeah.
And the truth is, there are some, sure.
Of
there are
course.
some people, there are plenty of what used to be, I have some of them in my family, Rockefeller Republicans who are very moderate to liberal Republicans who have no home in that party. And most of them have become Democrats. But there are some that have become independents and generally vote Democratic and whatever. And on the Democratic side, I'm sure there's the same thing. But that's some of them. There's also, as you said, there's Greens and there's neo-fascists.
Yeah.
So they I don't know why they wouldn't feel comfortable in the Republican Party these days, but that's another discussion.
That's entirely. It does seem like they should have quite a home there.
You'd think. So that's it. You're right. I mean, I don't think there's some enormous group of moderate independent voters, and polling would seem to bear that out. There's a variety of independent voters who are independent for different reasons. And, yeah, there's some in the middle who are undecided. But, you know, I'm just going to come out and say it because I'm tired of being PC. If you're undecided at this point, you're stupid.
Yeah, I have to say, I agree with you. Cliff Schecter, you are so knowledgeable about PR, public relations, and Libertas has a big play in that, which, of course, we will include all the links to on our site after the show, as we usually do. But with that knowledge, you know, what would you advise the campaigns to do now, or would you not? Is there something you would say to Obama, this is what you should be focusing on, or vice versa, something for Romney?
I would say to Obama, don't lose the next debate. I'm kidding. I'm being facetious about it. I think if he were to come, you know, the next debate, we'll see how many people are watching. I don't know if it'll be the 67 million people that were watching the first one. But if he comes in and shows the sort of fighting side of him, and again, we'll go back to what I said earlier, he's on people's side, and if he does what he did, what the Democrats did so well overall in that convention, just remind people of and really what Joe Biden did very well, remind people of the auto bailout, remind people of the jobs the stimulus has created and what hypocrites the other guys are because they love stimulus funds except for everybody else. Point out the stuff that they have done and done well. Point out, it drives me nuts that for the most part, except for on the guise of religion, women's issues haven't come out in these two debates. Immigration hasn't come up.
Gun issues, which is something that we know is important to you with all your work with mayors against guns or mayors against illegal guns. You know,
that's right. That's another important issue. And demographically, with all these issues, the people are on President Obama's side. It's the other side that has to hide from social issues these days. It's amazing, the complete reverse of what Republicans enjoyed for 30 years. So, I would say to him, if you were telling me what to advise, they're doing that well on the campaign trail. They have a new ad out about and showing Mitt Romney in his own words, saying that he'll destroy Planned Parenthood. They've taken on these issues in a smart way. What I would say is you need to talk about these things. You need to talk about, first of all, economic issues as a major theme about how Mitt Romney's life fits into Mitt Romney's platform, which is very simply he doesn't believe that rich people should have to pay taxes. Hell, he doesn't pay his own taxes. But if you don't, you're a moocher. He doesn't pay his own.
Right.
Doesn't care about it. Doesn't think he should have to. Thinks he should be able to put them in Swiss banks. He thinks 47% of you aren't worth the time of day. In Bain, bring up Sensata, bring up the statements from the gentleman like the one in the ad in Indiana was talking about how he felt like he was building his own coffin. They made the guy build a stage so people could get up and tell him he was fired. I mean, these are the things. This is Mitt Romney's life. This is what he will bring you. That's his persona as well as his policies. They fit very well together. Make that very clear. And then I would bring up I would force social issues into the debate because Mitt Romney wants to have it both ways, as he does in everything. He's multiple choice Mitt. He wants to pretend that when he talks to Hispanic audiences, he's sympathetic, and then he's talking to his old white guys and throw them all the hell out of the country. Yep. President Obama, to me, has to bring that up. Has to bring up where he stands on gay rights. Has to bring up abortion rights. I mean, these are things, and further than abortion rights, we need to be talking about women's rights in general.
Absolutely.
We need to be talking about the other side that opposes equal pay, the other side that thinks birth control should be something that women should have to beg for, forget their health. These are important issues, and these are issues with groups that disproportionately support Obama. So if I were going to tell them something, I think they've done a great job on the campaign trail. I got to tell you, I had some serious critiques in 2008. I don't have as many serious critiques about the advertising, which I think has been very good, about the topics they've chosen to talk about and everything. My critique is more that they need to bring that into the debate when so many more people are watching.
Amen to that. Cliff Schecter, you are a wise man, and I wish you were you had a direct line to Obama's ear. But I really appreciate you taking time with us, especially on this new early Sunday morning show. So thank you very much for getting up early with us.
Oh, my pleasure, and good luck with we'll have to do our best to make sure everybody knows about this great new early Sunday morning show because
absolutely.
It's much better than other things they could be watching or listening to.
Oh, well, I will make that statement into a promo just because you said it. Thank you so much, Cliff Schecter, everybody, and we'll hopefully talk to you again soon.
All right, thanks so much, guys.
All right, bye-bye, Cliff. Cliff Schecter, everybody, of course, of Libertas, LLC, Al Jazeera English, Take Action News, just everything, Mayors Against Illegal Guns. He is everywhere. He's got a hand in every pot in the best way.
I say we let Cliff debate Mitt Romney.
I would love that. Cliff would kick his you-know-what. So anyhow, we've got great guests still coming up. Casey Boyd coming up in the next few minutes here. And, of course, Lizz Winstead, Liz Free or Die. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. And we're your alternative Sunday morning talk show. So stick around. We'll be right back.
Holy crap! We'll have more on these new developments after this. It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Say you want to go to college. Yay! A Big Ten college. But you don't want to feel like part of the, well, you know. Is there an answer for you? Of course. Indiana University East. Go Red Wolves! Indiana University East. You'll get the quality of a Big Ten education in a small college setting. IU East offers more than 50 fields of study, from accounting to political science, taught by internationally recognized faculty with an average of 18 students per class. So it's not, student number 95A-6273, please report to. It's more like, hey, John, welcome to class. Best of all, you'll graduate with one of the most respected degrees anywhere, a degree from IU. Don't wait. Go to iue.edu. or call 800-959-EAST to arrange a visit to Indiana University East. IU. Focused on you.
I had a sore in my mouth that just wouldn't go away. And after a couple of weeks, I went to my doctor.
A sore, lump, or thick patch in your mouth or throat could be a symptom of oral cancer.
My doctor told me I was smart to come in. He said that oral cancer is more common in African American men than in any other group in the U.S. It turns out I did have oral cancer, but it was caught early and my treatment was successful. I'm glad I got it checked. That probably saved my life.
If you're an African American man, you need to know about oral cancer. Visit a doctor or dentist if you see changes in your mouth that don't go away after 2 weeks. It's important to get an oral cancer exam, because if you do have cancer, the earlier it's caught, the better. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, National Institutes of Health.
Take Action News is proud to be sponsored by Healthcare for America Now. HCAN is a national coalition of more than 1,000 groups in 50 states, representing 30 million people. HCAN works to promote, defend, implement, and improve the Affordable Care Act at both the state and federal levels. They also try to protect Medicare and Medicaid, increase corporate accountability, and confront forces that seek to take away critical services. HCAN believes in creating jobs, not cutting programs people depend on. HCAN runs comprehensive issue campaigns that mobilize people at the grassroots and define the public debate. HCAN is fighting to protect, implement, and improve the new health care law through national and state-based legislative and regulatory campaigns built on grassroots action, public education, communications, policy analysis, and groundbreaking research. HCAN has become a respected voice and national leader on health care while continuing to focus on aggressive field activity. Support HCAN, Healthcare for America Now.
This is your boy, Richard Fowler. Catch my show every Friday nights from 8 to 10 on We Act Radio, 1480, or weactradio.com.
You're listening to We Act Radio, WPWC 1480 AM. Visit us online at weactradio.com.
Does your child have difficulty controlling their anger or a history of academic failure in school? Options Public Charter School offers a therapeutic learning environment with small classroom sizes and on-site counseling services to help students succeed. Options PCS is now enrolling grades 5 through 11 for the upcoming school year. For more information, call Options PCS today at 202-547-1028. Options Public Charter School. Exceptional education for exceptional students.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We just have a few quick minutes here before we have one more break, and then our great next guest, Casey Boyd, author of Being Christian, a novel, who...
sounds very cool.
It sounds very cool. It sounds like she knows a thing or two about a thing or two.
To me, it sounds like, and I hope you'll ask this question because I know you're doing the interviews, but it almost sounds like since it's a fictional account,
right.
It's almost like an Atlas Shrugged of, using a fictional thing to actually tell a tale of a political idea.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
Her book is essentially the first novel since Elmer Gantry to deal with the dark side of religion in American politics. So
that's cool.
I'm very excited about this interview.
And it's interesting because this picks up on what Cliff was talking about a little bit in the last segment, in that for a very long time, the right has embraced the religious right.
It seems
actually,
like
I believe used them. I think there's some free thinking religious people would probably say yes, we have been used by the Republican Party, going back to the moral majority.
Right.
As one of the
and they're
legs
still
of the three-legged stool.
They're still attempting to. That's
sure.
I think in years past, that's why we've seen issues like abortion constantly be discussed, because they know it will motivate that religious base to go and vote
against their own economic interests.
Right. I think they've had to press that issue more because
more
and more people, even on the religious side, realize that there's not a conflict between, legal, safe, and rare abortions and their own personal religious beliefs.
Well, and also they're just the zealotry has gone so extreme that they're, like Cliff said, they're kind of running away from it.
Right.
Because it doesn't fit within that Overton window that we often talk about.
Absolutely.
You can be religious and still think the religious right's crazy.
It makes you wonder, if, your personal feeling. Is it even appropriate for religion questions to be asked in a vice presidential debate?
I think it is.
I
know you disagree.
I disagree. I
think that anything that's going to contribute to our understanding of how you're going to make decisions, what affects your decision-making process. And I don't think it's a bad thing that religion does. If it dominates, I want to know how much, to what extent, in what ways. I understand
any
person who comes to that position, every single experience of their entire life that they can remember, and even things they can't remember, affects how they face a situation. And the more we know about that, the better off we are.
I understand your point. However, there should not be a religious test to hold office. And I think that question specifically being asked is a religious test. However, if you said if the question was what is going to motivate your leadership, what is going to affect how you govern this country, if the individual person's answer was to state that their religion would have an effect, I don't have a problem with that.
What about this question then? Do you think that your religious beliefs will affect your decision-making process? In what ways and how much?
I still am a little uneasy, and I feel like it's a religious
test. It's like cutting out. I mean, there are some people who are not religious. There's some people who are very religious.
I completely understand your point.
It's to cut out the essence of what a person is, and I'm not saying this is a good or a bad thing. There are parts of religion that are beautiful and wonderful things, and a great way to treat other people, and a great way to deal with problems.
Most of religion is actually like that. It's not what people use it for.
I just don't see the problem with this. Now, the institutions and the leaders of a lot of the religions have gone a little crazy, but we'll get into that. Coming
with
up with
our next guest, who's actually on the phone. If you want to,
I should probably grab that, and I have to push buttons though.
Okay. Well, we'll be right back. We're gonna take a quick break. And we're going to speak with Casey Boyd, author of Being Christian, a novel. She's going to tell us her opinion, and I'm very excited about this interview. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back here on Talking Left as soon as Shane's back to the board here to start a break for us. That's a problem with only two people being in the studio. But I think it's going to be some very interesting stuff. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left. We'll be right back here with me, Danielle, Shano, and our next great guest, Casey Boyd. So stick around.
It's Thursday, October 4, 2012.
You put $90 billion into green jobs. And these businesses, many of them have gone out of business. I think about half of them, of the ones that have been invested in, have gone out of business.
Now, does anybody think that ExxonMobil needs some extra money when they're making money every time you go to the pump?
Fact-checking and debunking the first presidential debate. Total Oil slams Shell Oil's Arctic drilling. Plus, a whole lot of shaking going on. More fracking earthquakes in Texas.
All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
I like coal. I'm going to make sure we can continue to burn clean coal.
Continue to burn it? When do we start? This is your Green News Report. Okay, Des, not just a whole bunch of shaking going on, but a whole bunch of debunking going on after the first presidential debate in Denver.
Oh, heck yeah. There's lots to unpack there. But first, we have a few headlines. A University of Texas geophysicist says a cluster of small earthquakes that rattled the Dallas-Fort Worth area over last weekend were likely related to wastewater injection wells from the controversial natural gas drilling technique of hydraulic fracturing, also known as fracking. The largest measured 3.4. The Dallas area never had earthquakes above magnitude 3 before hydraulic fracturing operations began in the region in 2008, and they've had about one a month since.
We're actually causing earthquakes now, and nobody really seems to care about that with fracking. It's unbelievable to me.
The CEO of France-based Total Oil has publicly blasted Shell Oil and the industry's attempts to drill for oil in the harsh extremes of the Arctic. In an interview with the Financial Times, Total's CEO says that the risk of an oil spill in such a fragile area was simply too high and that, quote, a leak would do too much damage to the image of the company.
And that's the same thing the U.S. Coast Guard said, as they said we don't have the resources to respond if there is a spill. Nonetheless, the Obama administration has given the permit to Shell to move ahead with this dangerous drilling.
It's incredible.
Now, I like green energy as well.
That was Governor Mitt Romney at the first presidential debate on Wednesday night in Denver. With just 1 month to go before the November 6th election, clean energy and the environment got short shrift at the debate, not to mention climate change, which the candidates didn't literally mention it. We've got a full analysis of the energy part of the debate at our website, greennews.bradblog.com. But overall, they were very general. President Obama repeated his all-of-the-above plan, increasing oil and gas drilling, cutting taxpayer subsidies to big oil, and increasing support for the U.S. clean energy industry.
On energy, Governor Romney and I, we both agree that we've got to boost American energy production. But I also believe that we've got to look at the energy sources of the future, like wind and solar and biofuels, and make those investments. The oil industry gets $4 billion a year in corporate welfare. Now, does anybody think that ExxonMobil needs some extra money when they're making money every time you go to the pump?
Yeah, apparently Mitt Romney thinks ExxonMobil needs some more money.
Right. Mitt Romney repeated that he has his oil above all, drill everywhere agenda. But he didn't tell voters his plan includes drilling in national parks and overruling state bans on offshore drilling. Romney tossed out a shocking number of lies and half-truths. He even downplayed taxpayer oil subsidies.
I like green energy as well. Then you say Exxon and Mobil. Actually, this $2.8 billion goes largely to small companies, to drilling operators and so forth.
The fact is, that's a lie. The world's 5 largest oil companies, including Exxon, receive the lion's share of those billion-dollar tax breaks every year. And a corporate tax cut that Romney says he wants would give big oil even more.
Can we call those subsidies entitlements instead at this point?
That's a great idea. Romney did not tell the voters that he wants to end all federal support for the clean energy industry. And he also flat out lied about the Department of Energy's Clean Energy Loan Guarantee Program.
You put $90 billion into green jobs. $90 billion. And these businesses, many of them have gone out of business. I think about half of them, of the ones that have been invested in, have gone out of business. A number of them happen to be owned by people who are contributors to your campaigns.
Again, total lie. In reality world, less than 1% of those companies have failed. And in fact, the rest are going like gangbusters. And the Inspector General report on Solyndra debunked that campaign donor lie. The Romney campaign last night even admitted it was completely wrong, but it's unlikely that very many voters will hear about that now. The truth is Romney's energy plan undermines and attacks the U.S. clean energy industry. And of course, neither one of them mentioned climate change. Several environmental advocacy groups are petitioning upcoming debate moderators to pursue climate change as an issue. The next debate is next Thursday for the vice president. There are 2 more debates after that. But I have to say, waiting for them to mention climate change in these debates is the worst debate drinking game ever.
Well, at least you are here to debunk these lies when they do talk about it. For more on all of those stories and a full analysis and debunking of what happened at the first presidential debate, please see our website at greennews.bradblog.com. While you're there, please consider a donation to help sponsor the Green News Report. We rely on you and only you to stay on your public airwaves. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
CNN, ESPN, ABC, BCB, TNT, but mostly BS.
This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers. The revolution will be live.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We are having a great time here in our new Sunday morning spot. And joining us now, we're very excited to be speaking with Casey Boyd, the author of Being Christian, a novel. We're very excited to hear about this book. Casey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. We often talk about how the right has co-opted religion, often against many actual religious beliefs and teachings. And it sounds like your book has a lot to do with that.
Very much so. I became interested in this subject earlier in the decade when we saw the co-opting of the right-wing religious groups by the Bush administration. And I live in Ohio, and living in Ohio, I saw it magnified by, I can't even tell you how many degrees, when Ken Blackwell was running for governor. And at that point in time, there was a group called the Ohio Restoration Project, which set up a sort of pyramid kind of scheme to involve pastors and have pastors get friends to build this sort of campaign from the pulpit. Fortunately, the IRS did step in and show their hand, and they pulled back. But Ken Blackwell went on to campaign with some of the worst of the religious right, and I was at many of those rallies. After he lost, I then started traveling around the country and going to many of these rallies, and I saw how powerful these people were. Most frightening of all were the politicians that they brought along with them.
Absolutely. You know, that intrigues me. Have you recently heard about this recent similar story with 1,000 or so preachers saying, essentially, screw you, IRS, and having a day that they talked about politics from the pulpit?
And it's worse than that. They're actually praying. They've got these little tabletop fold-outs that you're supposed to put on your kitchen table and pray each day to get rid of Obama. That's preaching from the pulpit, and it's far worse. Many of these people get their only information from their church.
I hadn't heard about the tabletop thing. That's breaking news to me. I'm going to have to look more into that.
If you have the time, take a look at the pastor John Hagee. He's a Christian Zionist, and I think one of the most dangerous men in America because of his political affiliation and his influence on foreign policy when it comes to the Middle East and Israel.
Absolutely.
And John Hagee is, you can hear him on his site or read about it on his site, this 40 Days of Prayer.
It is really disturbing to me how many of those using politics either to obtain wealth, it seems, to obtain power, to obtain control over people, are so far
when you think
from.
About it, when you think about it, it's not that different than it was, many other times in history. I think many wars have been fought with religion as the premise when it's really power and wealth.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's just. The hypocrisy is what gets me
Right.
personally. I grew up not necessarily religious, but very spiritual and with a strong understanding of biblical teachings and practices. And these quote unquote religious right are neither, and they're so far away from anything that virtually any religion teaches us.
Right,
Compassion
they've
care.
simply abandoned do unto others, and I like to say they're actually doing to others in the way that they're filching their money. These guys live enormously luxurious lives of wealth. Some of them have Lear jets. They've got multi-million-dollar mansions. They've got bodyguards. When you go into one of these churches, it's you sort of understand what's happening. There's a great sense of community, and I think that's lacking in our society today. And I think people are searching for that. And then there's fabulous music. There's often coffee, a little coffee spot. You get free coffee, dancers. And then these guys get up there, and it would stun you to hear how many times in an hour they're asking for your money. They're demanding your money. They're promising you that if you give your money, everything's going to change, not only in this life, but, you'll be blessed with the Christian version of 72 virgins.
Yeah,
and therefore, I don't see the difference.
Exactly. We are speaking with author Casey Boyd, and your book, Being Christian, is the first novel since Elmer Gantry to deal with the dark side of American religion through story. What approach does the book take?
Well, I have read many, many of the fine nonfiction books out there on this, and which helped with my education. Things like Michelle Goldberg's Kingdom Coming and Chris Hedges. Oh, what's Chris's book? I can't remember the name of Chris's book. But there's some great books out there that people should take a look at. But people really don't want to pay attention to this. You like to say, it's fringe, it's going to go away, America's never gone that way. Well, it's about 25% of the population that believes in or that attends non-denominational churches or homeschools their kids or
That's more than I would have expected.
Yeah, it's huge. And then we get into things like creationism and gay marriage and all that, and they use these social issues to curry favor with their followers. But so I'd read these books of nonfiction, and I realized that maybe if I wrote something that was a piece of fiction, I could get more people to read it, because I think often that's the case. We're a story-based culture.
Yeah, it's absolutely an interesting perspective. I mean, nowadays things have to be presented in a movie format or some type of interactive format on the web to sometimes get people's attention. People want to be more entertained than just reading the facts.
Yeah, that's the sad truth. That's the sad truth. And this is, I have to tell you right up front, this is a very, very dark novel. You're not going to come out of it liking this character, but you're going to learn a lot, and it's a very fast read, very character-based, plot-driven. And for anybody that reads the book, keep in mind that I've watched a lot of dark TV and movies, and that's where some of this, and have a very active imagination. But I'm telling you,
I think that's definitely a point of intrigue. People
Yes.
don't want necessarily the soft, fluffy stuff anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not like I'm trying to explain except through the hypocrisy of the characters in the book, and it's certainly a magnification of what's going on, but it's also an amalgamation, if that makes sense.
Well, with your strong understanding and background and knowledge of religion, we were speaking a little bit before you came on about whether or not it was appropriate during the debate for the moderator to ask the religious question at the end, how religion would guide these two gentlemen's choices on the issue of abortion. What is your take on that? Do you think that was
I'm
inappropriate?
really glad you asked that, because I think that questions now that are taken for granted about religion and elections and candidates, we wouldn't have put up with it a mere 15 years ago. And now it's become part of our election process. There's a religious test. It started with Bush and the very, very clever Karl Rove seeing an opening. And I think it was entirely inappropriate. I don't think that had any place in the debate.
I have to agree with you. And I think there's even been a double standard a little bit, because people are so worried about, the media is so worried about looking like they're attacking Romney for being Mormon, that I have to wonder if that same question would have been asked to him. Do you any take on it?
I don't know that it would have, but it's really hard to say, because he may even want to be asked that question because of, to sort of curry favor. Basically, we know he's pandering like mad. We don't even know who the man is.
That's the truth. Any idea how we move the political discussion away from religion? How we go back to that separation of church and state? Is it too late for that?
I don't think it's too late, but I think it's crucial that people recognize that it's a reality and it's much, much bigger than they think. I think they saw in the GOP primaries how much it had moved into politics, how many politicians are actually voting the Bible. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm hoping that this book will spark a much broader national dialogue about the reality of who's making our decisions. And, you can look at Romney and view his friendship with Bibi Netanyahu and understand that Romney said, when it comes to questions of the Middle East, I'll call it my friend Bibi, and then think about the fact that Netanyahu would like us to join him in war against Iran.
Absolutely.
Those are public policy questions, or foreign policy questions, and religion has no business being anywhere near that kind of decision-making.
I absolutely agree. And, to state that these men vote the Bible, it's, to clarify, they vote the part of the Bible that they choose to follow, Old Testament as opposed to New Testament, but yet consider themselves Christians.
And if you really want to be chilled, take a look at books like, and I don't expect anyone to do this, it's pretty horrific reading, but John Hagee has this book that he wrote several years ago called Jerusalem Countdown. The guy is aching for a nuclear war. And
absolutely.
The reason he wants it is because it's in the book of Revelation. And these people see that playing out now every day on the news, and they hype up their followers. And, they have television programs every day of the week. We don't watch them. We don't think about them. But tens of millions of people are watching.
Absolutely. And we have our actual elected representatives going out there and talking about the end times and about the four horsemen and advocating and pretending to be pro-Israel simply for the religious aspect of that.
Absolutely. I'll tell you one other little hint that you might like to look for. When you hear Romney and the GOP talking about Russia, and have you noticed how they're drumming up Russia as the enemy again?
Yes, I've heard that quite often.
It's biblical. It's absolutely biblical. You can go back to George W. Bush when he was talking to Chirac about the Iraq War. He sent him some kind of communication. He was talking about these biblical things in Magog and Magog. Well, we haven't heard of that, and Chirac didn't know what he was talking about. And it turns out it's all end times book of Revelation, and Bush is like, rah, rah, let's go into the Middle East and bring on the end.
Wow, that's interesting. I hadn't heard of that take on why they were suddenly saying Russia is our biggest enemy. But
it's entirely biblical, and I'm not saying that Romney's following that scenario, but he's dog whistling to the voting public.
And here I thought it was just him being an idiot on foreign policy.
No,
Casey Boyd.
That's the problem. It's not. There's all this stuff until we educate ourselves. We won't know. Absolutely. When the code is being spoken, and the code is being spoken.
And everybody can go to beingchristian.net and check out Casey Boyd's book, Being Christian, a Novel. Casey, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a pleasure
really
speaking with you. Absolutely.
Okay, thanks so much.
Good luck with the book, and we'll put all the links up and send everybody over to your site and to Amazon where they can pick it up.
Great. I really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. Have a great Sunday.
Thank you for what you do.
Bye-bye. Casey Boyd, everybody, Being Christian, a Novel. I love how the title is going to freak so many religious people out.
Aren't they? It's another
yes,
attack
they're
on
going to go to
Christianity.
that website and think, something's fishy about this.
There's a difference between an attack on a religion and a commentary on religious people.
Absolutely.
So-called religious people.
Absolutely. But I really appreciate her take, and I'm going to look up that biblical reference to Russia. That
I know that I'm intrigued.
Intrigues me.
I think the whole thing intrigues me. It sounds like a great movie.
Yeah. So we'll have the links up, of course, with the blog post of this show. But we're going to run to a break and get back because we only have a few more minutes here before we get to speak with the one and only Lizz Winstead. Her book, Liz Free or Die, and all her great stuff. We'll be right back here on Talking Left.
Just a tap on the shoulder and a parking lot. He still drinks, but he does believe religion. Well, you do the best you can.
It's our last errand today, Jimmy. Just need to pick up some light bulbs.
Whoa, there's so many. Did Grandma tell you which ones to buy?
No, but check out the label on this package. It'll help us find the right bulbs.
Does it really matter?
Well, sure. The new light bulbs use a lot less energy, so we save money on our electric bill by using an energy-saving incandescent, CFL, or LED.
How about this bulb?
Let's see. We need to replace the 60-watt bulbs in our bedside lamps. That one is 800 lumens, so it should do the trick.
I've never heard of lumens.
Lumens tell us how bright the light is. The more lumens, the brighter the bulb.
You know, Grandpa, you're a pretty bright guy.
Yeah, you're pretty smart yourself, Jimmy.
Lumens, the new way to shop for light. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. That's EnergySavers.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Energy.
You may be hearing about people having trouble making mortgage payments and risking losing their homes. Many of them just aren't aware of the options that can prevent foreclosure. There are many options available to homeowners, such as repayment and forbearance plans, loan modifications, and even refinancing. Where does someone go for help? They should talk directly with their lender or a qualified HUD-approved counseling agency. Both can provide helpful information without charging a fee. According to PMI Mortgage Insurance Company, it's not a good idea to pay for services that you can get for free from a lender or a qualified nonprofit counseling agency. To learn more, visit homesafepmi.com or call HUD at 1-800-569-4287 for a counseling agency near you. That's 1-800-569-4287. This message is brought to you by PMI, supporting sustainable home ownership that strengthens communities.
Friends, David Schuster here, and all of us at We Act Radio are so proud of our neighbors here in Southeast D.C., especially one of our partners, the Ark. The Ark is at 1901 Mississippi Avenue Southeast. It's the home to some of Washington's best, including the Washington Ballet, the Levine School of Music, Boys and Girls Club, and the Children's Health Project. All provide a number of programs and services within the very same facility. The Ark is also home to the Ark Theater, the only theater east of the river, which hosts a variety of dance, music, and theatrical shows each year. Almost everything you could want is at the Ark, so stop by and see them. The Ark, 1901 Mississippi Avenue in Southeast. For more information, visit the Ark's website, www.thearkdc.org, or call 202-889-5901. The Ark, part of Southeast D.C.
Hello, my name is Antonio Ford from A Plus Fitness.
I've been studying foods, nutrition, and the anatomy of the body for well over 23 years. One thing about an animal-based diet is it kills people in every bite. It kills you by restricting blood and oxygen from flowing freely throughout your arteries, thus causing all kinds of life-threatening health problems and issues. If you want the blueprint for healthy eating, stay tuned to We Act Radio for more information, or contact us at aplus.fitness@yahoo.com. Again, that's aplus.fitness@yahoo.com, or give us a call at area code 202-903-6323. Remember, it's one bite at a time.
Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We are only minutes away from speaking with the great Lizz Winstead about her book, which I finally grabbed, Liz Free or Die. Great book. You can pick it up lots of places. It's like everywhere right now. But she was kind enough to autograph a copy of it for us at Netroots Nation. We're very excited to be speaking with her in just a few minutes about all of her work against these anti-abortion laws and legislation.
Anti-women laws.
Anti-women laws. And anti-family laws.
There you go.
Absolutely.
Anti-personal decision-making process.
Right. Anti-choice.
Anti-everything.
And we wanted to touch on the question that was asked in the debate, of course, religion and how it affected these two men's view on abortion. So why don't we start off with Biden, clip number 6, Shane.
My religion defines who I am, and I've been a practicing Catholic my whole life, and it has particularly informed my social doctrine. Catholic social doctrine talks about taking care of those who can't take care of themselves, people who need help. With regard to abortion, I accept my church's position on abortion as what we call de fide doctrine. Life begins at conception. That's the church's judgment. I accept it in my personal life. But I refuse to impose it on equally devout Christians and Muslims and Jews. And I just refuse to impose that on others, unlike my friend here, the congressman. I do not believe that we have a right to tell other people that women, they can't control their body. It's a decision between them and their doctor. In my view, in the Supreme Court, I'm not going to interfere with that.
I think that is the best way that religion and abortion rights could be tied into one answer, that it doesn't matter what I personally believe. I know that I should not impose this view on others, which I think was essentially what Biden said. I wish that those who followed a religion, whatever it may be, didn't impose any of their beliefs on me. However, we hear Paul Ryan, and I think this is really important for most people to understand what he's implying with this statement.
You want to ask basically why I'm pro-life? It's not simply because of my Catholic faith. That's a factor, of course. But it's also because of reason and science.
Oh, give me a break.
What? You know, I think about 10 and a half years ago, my wife Jana and I went to Mercy Hospital in Janesville, where I was born, for our 7-week ultrasound for our firstborn child. And we saw that heartbeat. Our little baby was in the shape of a bean. And to this day, we have nicknamed our firstborn child, Liza, Bean. Now, I believe that life begins at conception. That's why, those are the reasons why I'm pro-life. Now, I understand this is a difficult issue, and I respect people who don't agree with me on this.
I respect it, but you can't.
But the policy of a Romney administration will be to oppose abortion with the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. What troubles me more is how this administration has handled all of these issues. Look at what they're doing through Obamacare with respect to assaulting the religious liberties of this country.
Flat out lie.
They're infringing upon our first freedom.
Lie.
The freedom of religion by infringing on Catholic charities, Catholic churches, Catholic hospitals. Our church should not have to sue our federal government to maintain their religious liberties. And with respect to abortion,
here it is.
The Democratic Party used to say they want it to be safe, legal, and rare. Now, they support it without restriction and with taxpayer funding.
Lie. Well, he also, I thought the clip went into him talking about how it should be, it shouldn't be a Supreme Court decision. It should be a vote of the people, essentially saying, let's overturn Roe v. Wade and allow the states to tell you whether or not it's acceptable.
And they like that idea because they can still overturn Roe v. Wade, say, yay, we win, and then do it state by state and still have something to raise money on because, as John Fugelsang often says, they don't want abortion to go away because it's too big a fundraiser and a too big rallying cry for the religious right.
Although I do think it's quite interesting that Paul Ryan mentions the First Amendment and freedom of religion, which should be freedom from religion, while saying he should impose his religious beliefs on others. That's the
Bit of
GOP
hypocrisy
for you.
in there.
I love that, and the fact that they can list or talk about starting new wars or continuing old ones and claim to be pro-life in all within under an hour. It's amazing. But it's very important. It's the Supreme Court, stupid, and that's what he just made clear. So anyhow, I think we got to run back to a break so that we have time to get to the one and only Lizz Winstead, co-founder of A is 4, and so much more. Don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Lizz Winstead coming up next.
Hey, this is Hal Sparks from the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide, and you're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
National brand name food conglomerates are coming a cropper over California's Proposition 37. Actually, it's a double cropper. First, they're frantically scrambling to defeat this citizens' initiative, which would establish a state right-to-know labeling requirement on any food with genetically manipulated organisms in it. The giants fear that consumers, damn you, will reject products containing risky GMOs, so they want to keep such contents a secret. Since the California market is huge, passage of a labeling law there would effectively become a national provision. Thus, the corporations are mounting a massive PR campaign against Prop 37. But, oops, this media blitz is causing a second cropper for them by revealing way more about their conglomerated empires than they want people to know. Another of their carefully constructed consumer frauds is that many multinationals have quietly bought up dozens of popular organic food firms, but they've kept their conglomerate name off the labels, hoping that customers will think the organic brands are still scrappy independent businesses. Now, though, the public is learning that Kashi Organics, for example, is a subsidiary of Kellogg, which is spending a ton to defeat Prop 37. Other megabuck donors to the anti-consumer campaign include General Mills, owner of Muir Glen, Dean Foods, owner of Horizon Organic Milk, plus such giant deceivers as Campbell Soup, Coca-Cola, ConAgra, Hershey, Hormel, Nestle, Ocean Spray, PepsiCo, and Sara Lee. This is Jim Hightower saying the fun part is that the organic subsidiaries of these giants support the right-to-know labeling law, and some of them are the ones who've outed the corporate parents for financing legalized consumer deception. Nothing like a feisty family squabble to air out the dirty linens and expose some ugly truths.
If you like these feisty pops of populism that Hightower zings out on the airwaves, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter provides the in-depth lowdown on what the greed heads of Wall Street and the boneheads of Washington are doing to us behind the scenes. With Hightower's saucy Texas humor and truth-telling populist perspective, the Lowdown literally can lift you up. And get this, you can have the Lowdown delivered to your mailbox or email each month for only $15 a year. Yes, 12 issues, only $15. Check it out, hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. Bill Bailey is one of the Walmart warehouse workers who struck the Elwood, Illinois Walmart warehouse. He describes returning to work after the strike, having won all the strike demands.
We went back in Saturday morning as a group wearing Warehouse Workers for Justice T-shirts. We went in at different times, some of us at 6 and some of us at 8, but at both shifts as a group. We got back pay for the full period we were out. We got one period's pay upon arrival. I personally got a check for $450. They say the rest of the pay will be on the following paycheck, following through with that. We also got safety gear, shin guards for everyone, and we found that they'd installed giant airplane propeller-style fans for the first time. We won everything that we had demanded, and the unfair labor practice strike, we were reinstated with back pay. As far as we're concerned, it's a victory.
Leah Freed of Warehouse Workers for Justice says that Victoria's former Walmart warehouse strikers from Illinois Wednesday will join other Walmart workers in Arkansas to take a message directly to the giant retailer's board.
And they will be calling on Walmart to immediately end all of the retaliation for workers speaking out against poor conditions and to improve conditions throughout their supply chain and their company.
Vote for Obama, lose your job. At least that's what it seems like one CEO is proposing to his employees. Jesse Russell reports.
Westgate Resort CEO David Siegel sent an email to workers telling them that if President Barack Obama is reelected and he has to pay any new taxes, he'll fire his employees. Siegel had a net worth of nearly $1 billion before the real estate market went bust during the Bush administration. When that happened, Siegel was in a pickle because most of his millions were tied up in securities and not in savings. Lenders also weren't lending due to the housing crisis. Siegel has a habit of bragging that he was responsible for the election of George W. Bush. In a documentary called The Queen of Versailles, Siegel said he would put negative articles about Al Gore in with the paychecks of his workers. He said his managers surveyed employees, and if they said they liked Bush, the company would make sure those workers registered to vote, but not if they liked Gore. The film in which Siegel made the claims was about his attempt and failure to build the biggest mansion in the United States.
This newscast made possible in part through underwriting from the Office and Professional Employees International Union and from the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers.
Workers Independent News puts workers and their unions on the national radio news airwaves every day. To help keep labor's voice on the air, go to laborradio.org.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
It takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And at the end of the day, the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be you. So United Way is asking you to make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because when a child advances, we all advance. Be a reader, tutor or mentor, give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge now at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
Tell me what you think about me. I'm my own diamonds and I buy my own rings. Only ring is silly when I'm feeling lonely. When it's all over, please get up and leave. Questions, tell me how you feel about this. Try to control me while you get business.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano.
That's what you need on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, well, was that like the house version of Independent Woman there? That was quite interesting. Nothing, not nearly as interesting, though, as our next guest, Lizz Winstead, co-creator of The Daily Show, author of Liz Free or Die, co-founder of A is 4, co-founder of Lady Parts Justice. Liz, you seem like you just do it all.
You guys, I'm so tired that I can't even, it's crazy. Well, as Shano will tell everyone, we have been trying to schedule me coming on the radio for what seems like 5 years.
Over a year.
Doesn't it? I mean, and it's just been, timing has been bad, whatever, and so I'm so glad we could finally buy, but it has been an outrageously busy time, and I blame so much of it on how lame the media is, that like comedians having to pick up so much slack. It's crazy at this point.
Well, and I blame a lot of ridiculous anti-abortion legislation that you've kind of been busy fighting. You know, that does kind of take precedence to our little show, but you know, we do appreciate you taking time with us.
Well, you know, it's funny because, you know, I started right after the 2011 Congress took over, and And I had, I've been doing benefits for Planned Parenthood and pro-choice organizations for a long time. But, when H.R. 1 was let's defund Planned Parenthood and NPR and national parks and everything else, and I was sitting there trying to finish my book going, are they trying to perform abortions on Car Talk, in Yosemite or something? Like, what is happening? And when it failed and it went to the states, and that's when everything just started unraveling so profoundly, I just decided to hit the road. And I was hitting the road, and in June, and it was kind of right when Occupy started happening as well. And the Occupy folks were, at the end of the summer last year going, why aren't you talking about Occupy? I'm like, you know what? I'm talking about the uterus. You guys got this. I'm sorry, I support you, but I can't be doing all things for all people. And so it was really interesting to see that some people were really excited, and then once you start becoming active, everybody wants you to be active in everything, and it's physically impossible.
Yeah, and when you divide yourself 18 different ways, you kind of sometimes aren't left with enough to really fight for one of the issues strongly. And I think
that's right.
The stance you're taking on this anti-abortion legislation is so important because, it doesn't just affect women. It doesn't just affect women's health. It affects economic situations. It affects families. It affects, how many poor kids are sitting in an orphanage somewhere waiting to be adopted. What you're standing for is just so vital, and it's under attack. So right on, I think you're in the right area.
I get sort of tired, even in some progressive media circles, anytime somebody tries to separate out this issue from the economy, it drives me insane. If some right-winger gets a free pass or whatever, because there is nothing that is a bigger economic issue than deciding what your life is going to be like. If you want to feed just your mouth, several mouths, can you? What that means for saving for your future, what that means for everything is tied into, what you can afford to do and how you want to, or if you want to raise a family.
Right.
And so if you're trying to remove it out of the economics of the world, then A, you're a complete moron and are unqualified to lead, and B, what you're really trying to do is legislate the sexual behavior of people. And that is really what it seems to boil down to me more than anything else, and that part gets really scary. We're talking about reproductive health, and we're talking about abortion here, and the word abortion isn't said a lot. People don't want to say it. I've actually had people say to me, well, abortion's a scary word, and so we're trying to manage the conversation the best we can. And what I say is, you know what? Being somebody who was 17 years old and was pregnant the first time I ever had sex, Catholic family, do you know what's really a scary thing? Is trying to get an abortion without feeling shame, knowing that it's the right thing for me. I don't want to kowtow to a word that is a procedure that people need, that is necessary. And being stuck in a situation where you may not have access to an abortion is way scarier than the word itself.
Absolutely, because, we all know, we all can study the same history. Abortion is going to exist. It's going to happen, whether or not these laws are in place. It's a question of, do you want back alley, abortions that cause the death of women and young girls, or do you want safe, legal, and rare?
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right. And it's, to me at this point, I've sort of have my hands in a couple of different pots, and one is A is For, which is this organization that Martha Plimpton and I and Sarah Steyer, who's an amazing comedian, writer, and actress, and a couple of other women who you may not know as well, have started this little organization where we are reclaiming sort of the Scarlet A and wearing this big A on our chest and selling the A's on our website to sort of tell people, hey, you want to know what? We are going to reclaim, and we're not going to have shame about talking about this issue and talking about the issue of reproductive health. And these little red A's, they go towards benefiting the Center for Reproductive Rights, who are the people who fight all the legislation on, they're at the forefront of it all internationally and in America, and they're great.
Yeah, I love.
And then as a side project to that is this thing called Lady Parts Justice, where I take my brand of humor, and what I'm doing is we've taken one so far of these laws, and we kind of want to show people what happens when these laws go into effect through humor, through outrage, and making videos that are real and uncomfortable and through the lens of humor and outrage to kind of jar people into this is what happens.
Yeah.
Because I think so often a lot of people who are pro-choice and they don't understand that some of these nutbags are getting elected, or they don't even understand that laws have passed until they end up at the pharmacy because they had maybe a malfunction with their birth control, and some pharmacist can size them up in some states and say, you know what, I don't think I want to give you that. I don't morally believe in dispensing the morning after pill to you, so you're just going to have to go elsewhere and find that.
Yeah, I actually checked out several of those videos on both A is For and Lady Parts Justice. We're going to put all those links up with our show post this afternoon. But how you're able to bring comedy into such a hotly debated issue, something that's so important, is, I think, the greatest way to reach people. You know, some of those videos are, yes, it's uncomfortable. It's like sitting with somebody during some very intimate doctor's visits, but to add humor to that was astounding and had me laughing out loud, I have to say.
Well, I'm so glad, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, it's not the only way, but it's the most effective way that I know how to do it. And, you know, I've had a transvaginal ultrasound. I've been through it. I've terminated a pregnancy as a young woman. You know, I've been the person that's been in those situations. And so maybe because I've been there, I can walk the line a little bit better than maybe somebody else. You know, I'm always going to have detractors and people who say that's unnecessary. Why did you do that? You know, I mean, in our video, we use a curling iron as the sort of transvaginal ultrasound. And people were like, that's really tacky. Why did you use a curling iron? I said, because I based it on the thing that was put inside of me, and I showed a picture of it, and it looks just like a curling iron. And I said, so that's why. And again, the fact that you're saying it creeped you out, it's weird, is kind of part of the point.
Right, because it's creepy and weird that these laws would be in place.
And says you have to pay now for this medically unnecessary thing, and then you have to look at what I'm doing because the law has decided that because you're a woman, we don't trust your behavior and your judgment. And that's really offensive.
Well, and it brings it back to the economic issue. You know, I researched a lot of these legislations. Some of these ultrasounds can cost up to $700, $900 and be prohibitive to keep a woman from actually getting the medical care that she needs, which, you know, it could be an abortion based on more than just she doesn't want to keep the child.
Right. That's exactly right. And it's and to have to force a woman to constantly, just think of the psychology of it, you know, to have a legislation that is just reinforcing to a woman the whole time she needs to make a decision for herself. She might be wrong. You might be wrong. Do you really trust yourself? Well, you really need a second set of eyes that doesn't know you. You really need a second set of eyes from the government.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we just can't really trust you. I mean, you know, you did have sex with a guy after all. Maybe that was your first mistake. You know, and on some level it's like, yeah, I guess I did have sex with a white guy. Maybe that's a problem. Or a guy, you know. I mean, it's just really upsetting that this is where we live and that more people don't know about it. And in the videos, we decided to do sort of a fake Law and Order kind of voiceover with a crawl of all of the legislation that has been coming forth to cover up the voiceover in the video. And my editor called me when we were making the video, and he said, Liz, I couldn't even get out of the Michigan legislation. There was enough anti-choice Michigan legislation to fill 15 seconds of constant scrolling. Right. What should I do? And I was like, first of all, that's completely upsetting. Because Michigan has one of the craziest, I think they even called it like the super abortion bill or something, like it's insane. So it's like you got to mix it up and throw the other states in. But yeah, I mean, it's a point where it's a game of whack-a-mole, and I think if I can lure people in to pay attention to the potential if some of these laws get passed and what exactly a person has to go through with laws that have gotten passed, I think we can get somewhere with it.
I think so, too, especially with somebody with your intelligence, comedic wit, and obvious passion fighting for such a good cause. Lizz Winstead I do want to make sure everybody goes and grabs a copy of your book, and hopefully you'll continue on that tour out there signing some of them.
I am. I'm in Boston actually in a couple of weeks, and I'm doing, and this is really fun for anybody who's in the New York area. I am, the night before the election, I am doing a show that is a recap of the entire election season so that we can, have a hilarious reminder and put it all behind us as we head to the polls the next day. So that'll be really fun. That's you can get the details of that on my website, LizzWinstead.com.
Awesome. Lizz Winstead, thank you so much for taking time with us. We really appreciate it.
Anytime, you guys. Well, I shouldn't say anytime because, I'm so busy. But after the election, I think we'll be free up, and let's talk again soon, okay?
Absolutely.
Thanks,
have fun.
you guys.
Have fun. Have a great Sunday.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Lizz Winstead, everybody. I bet she would want everybody to go and check out aisfor.com. That's F-O-R, not the number. A-is-for.
And you go Liz Winstead.
LizzWinstead.com. She is everywhere.
She's the ruler of the Lizantine Empire, as she calls it. It's hilarious to me. The Lizantine Empire.
We're going to run to a quick break and come back and let you know what stories you need to pay close attention to this week. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shano. Thanks to our great guest so far, Lizz Winstead. How about that? Be right back.
See, that wasn't so bad, was it?
Ooh, I gotta say, that was fantastic.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
It's our last errand today, Jimmy. Just need to pick up some light bulbs.
Whoa, there's so many. Did Grandma tell you which ones to buy?
No, but check out the label on this package. It'll help us find the right bulbs.
Does it really matter?
Well, sure. The new light bulbs use a lot less energy, so we save money on our electric bill by using an energy-saving incandescent, CFL, or LED.
How about this bulb?
Let's see. We need to replace the 60-watt bulbs in our bedside lamps. That one is 800 lumens, so it should do the trick.
I've never heard of lumens.
Lumens tell us how bright the light is. The more lumens, the brighter the bulb.
You know, Grandpa, you're a pretty bright guy.
Yeah, you're pretty smart yourself, Jimmy.
Lumens, the new way to shop for light. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. That's EnergySavers.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Energy.
You may be hearing about people having trouble making mortgage payments and risking losing their homes. Many of them just aren't aware of the options that can prevent foreclosure. There are many options available to homeowners, such as repayment and forbearance plans, loan modifications, and even refinancing. Where does someone go for help? They should talk directly with their lender or a qualified HUD-approved counseling agency. Both can provide helpful information without charging a fee. According to PMI Mortgage Insurance Company, it's not a good idea to pay for services that you can get for free from a lender or a qualified nonprofit counseling agency. To learn more, visit homesafepmi.com or call HUD at 1-800-569-4287 for a counseling agency near you. That's 1-800-569-4287. This message is brought to you by PMI, supporting sustainable home ownership that strengthens communities.
Take Action News with David Schuster, Saturdays from 12 to 3 on We Act Radio, 1480 AM and weactradio.com.
Well, for me, it's always been, you report the facts. You report like hell, let the chips fall where they may. And the truth ultimately is what's going to sort of help our society and help all of us. I don't think progressives want a thumb on the scale on the facts. They just want the facts out there. You let the facts out, and progressives will tell you, we're going to win 70% of the time. You may quibble with the percentages or whatnot, but I think that's just sort of what progressives are looking for, and I think that's where this all sort of meshes with my interest as a journalist. And my interest as a journalist is report the facts. Here's what's going on. Here's what the facts say. Here's what history says. Here are the lessons we know we have learned. And let people draw their own conclusions. And I think what's so unfortunate right now in the world of broadcast media is I do think that a lot of conservative radio, certainly conservative television, they're not interested in facts. And that's ultimately where I think conservative media is going to have its downfalls, that Americans are hungry. They're just hungry for basic information, hungry for basic facts. You report like hell. you let the chips fall where they may. I think it's natural for all of us who care, who are passionate about politics, who feel like we have a sense about the difference between right and wrong. I think it's okay to let that be part of your coverage. It's important for all of us as broadcasters and journalists. In this day and age, we have to be authentic. You can't be the person who's up in the ivory tower that comes down and tells people, now you must eat your peas. Now, it's all about, we all have personalities, and I think it's being aware sometimes of our own bias, but also being open to the idea that sometimes we're wrong, but we have a dialogue, and we have a passionate dialogue, and we care about this country, we care about this community, and I think that sort of passion is what carries us through.
Hear more from David Schecter, Saturdays from 12 to 3 on Take Action News, on We Act Radio, 1480 AM, and weactradio.com.
Welcome back to the last few minutes we have here on Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We start every show with news stories we feel haven't gotten enough coverage this week or in the previous few weeks. So we figured now we'd end the show with a couple stories we hope you keep an eye on during the following week. Because they probably
I like that
also...
idea. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they probably won't get enough coverage.
Or they will, also, but you'll know ahead of time, and,
Exactly.
you'll be ready to debate your friends when they say, oh, my God, did you hear? Oh, my God.
The first one is one that's very important to this show and very important probably to many of our listeners, which is the Walmart strike.
Yay.
So far, I think several hundred workers have gone on strike at 28 stores in 12 different cities.
It started as a warehouse strike.
Right. It's the first strike to hit Walmart in 50 years.
Well, a retail worker.
Right.
Yeah, in their history.
Well, essentially, a Walmart memo has been leaked, possibly purposely, in my opinion, that is advising management how to deal with the striking employees and warning them that they are not directed not to discipline employees who engage in walkouts, sit-ins, or strikes. It seems like an unprecedented level of caution for a company that has been caught repeatedly time after time discouraging workers from joining a union.
Right.
Video.
Judge them on their actions, not on their words in this leaked memo, because at first, when the petitions were given to these people, they were arrested for trespassing and fired. Now, granted, after protesting, they were brought back to work, but that was their now, was the memo in reaction to that poor handling of that situation? I don't know.
Well, it was released October 8th, issued October 8th, so it could very well have been in response to that.
And on top of it, if that actually is going to be their policy, let's hold them to it.
Yeah, and that means in every city, in every store around the world, not just in these 12 cities. God forbid that these employees asked to be paid more than minimum wage or asked to be receiving benefits at 32 hours, which any other company would consider full-time. They consider it part-time.
Especially when your owners have more wealth than the bottom 40%
and
of
how
the
about
entire
this?
United States.
As the rest of us, as voters, as Americans, how about we get Walmart off the government subsidies?
Hey.
Just saying.
Explain how
Well, because they pay their workers such a low wage that workers have to apply for Medicaid and food stamps in order to survive.
Which is part of the package they actually present to them.
Right. So how about instead of taxpayers subsidizing Walmart's profits, they actually stand up and pay their employees a living wage.
And they not only do they subsidize them, the lack of them paying a living wage. Most Walmart workers have to shop at Walmart because there's the only store around, and so therefore they're taking government money if it's food stamps and then spending it at Walmart. So Walmart gets the benefit of the worker for less
and gets the profit.
The profit from the purchase. It's devious.
It's disgusting. And real quickly, one other thing that we hope you will be paying attention to in this week's presidential debate are the issues that aren't getting addressed. You can find a great article at commondreams.org about the 5 simple realities missing from the campaign. And I'd actually like to add a few to that as well. They're talking about the Progressive Caucus budget for all, which we would love to see discussed. Of course, climate change and how tackling that would fix jobs and stimulate the economy. How being in war affects us. Just lots of great issues that we hope you will pay attention for in the next debate. Of course, we want to thank our great guests, Cliff Schecter. You can check him out on Twitter at Cliff Schecter or Libertas.com. Our great author, Casey Boyd, and beingchristian.net, and Lizz Winstead, author Liz Free or Die. She's got like 1 million sites, but I bet she'd point you to as4.com. So thank you all for checking out our new Sunday edition of the show. I hope you liked it as much as we did. We're going to be right back here next week and perhaps in a few more places. So stay tuned. We'll let you know as the developments come. Thanks so much for checking us out. This is Danielle and Shano and Talking Left.